was actually talking to your son right before this, and one of the things that we were talking about was something that you spoke on in the book. I had no clue. It was completely left field, but it was towards the end of the book, and I want to ask at the end of the interview, because for everybody that's listening, this is about to be real. This isn't there's no sugarcoating. There's no, there's no bending around the issue. We can't smooth talk around it. It's real.
It's raw.
And now you get the gist of why you stay around for 28 years, because it really is real. Yeah. If you get in it, everybody can't do this criminal justice thing, and they can tell you all they want to that this person is a good lawyer, this, that, and the third. But when you really get your teeth into it, if you really believe you got it, you're trying to help, at some point it hits you that you have to help. You have to make it real. You have to fight. You have to scratch. You have to claw. You have to bite, because it's just that real. It is. It's like I put in the book, it's like you jumping into a sea of sharks. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so you have to swim for your life every day and every moment of every day.
Man.
So. Hey, for those that are curious of who our guest is, we don't want to spoil it, but before we do, Jabril, I think we need to get straight down to business, because the brother we have right here ain't playing no games.
Yes, and we can't play no games with this intro, so let's get it.
Hey, let's get it, baby. 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everybody? This is Jabril Salam.
And Muhammad Hassan.
And you are listening to the Young and Muslim Podcast.
As-Salaam Alaikum, everybody. So those that caught the snippet, today we have a retired criminal and constitutional lawyer, now author and publisher of 4 books, brother Muhammad ibn Bashir. As-Salaam Alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me, brothers. Pleasure.
Yes. We're definitely excited to go through your journey. As you had mentioned, 28 years in the criminal justice system here in America as a criminal law attorney. Think you've heard this question many times, but just why? Why did you do it?
And a follow-up to that question, how do you still have hair?
I don't... Oh, boy. Look. You can only... Look. That's a great question. The why obviously is, as you may know, I may have told you before, my mother dreamed this for me when I was young. She talked it into existence. Told me I was going to be a lawyer when I was 5. Surrounded me with everything that will be told. She used to make me watch Perry Mason. You know what I mean? The slick. He had the sharp suits and everything, and he always won. He never lost. He was cool. He was sharp. He was that dude. So he used to make me watch all those things, and she used to make me read everything and research everything. So her dream for me was to be a lawyer, and plus she said I talked. Yeah, she's the way she said. All right. So, but again, once I got in, I knew it was where I was supposed to be, and that was because you sometimes you just hit the ground running. You know that this is your spot. And all I ever wanted to do, all I ever did with my life was to try to give back to the community and serve. We're better to serve than in the criminal justice system. The vast majority of the people in my community were somehow connected. Either somebody got charged, somebody was a victim, somebody knew somebody was this bad situation, had a good situation, and they always come back to the law of criminal justice and the Constitution. And so getting into it was a natural thing for me. And as I said, I hit the ground running because it was what I believed I was meant to do. I stayed around long enough because once you get in it, you realize that there aren't very many people who can do this and not do it at the level that it needs to be done on. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. It's just I had to be here and fight this battle. But then as you mature, you try to find other ways to fight. So I picked up my pen, my journalism degree. I picked up my broadcast background and began to do podcasts. I began to do writings. Wrote for Don Diva magazine to try to educate our community to the law. Do the podcast, the Raw Law Project, to educate people to the law. And then some social activism to try to educate people to the law. Because the biggest thing that you'll learn, if you really are concerned, is that our people just don't understand the law. 85% of what we go through in this criminal justice system is because we just don't know. We just don't know what's coming. We just don't know what hits us when we get there. And we just don't know how to get out of the way or stay out of the way. So that's what my goal was, to try to educate. So.
Yeah, it's like you said, the system is a Shark Tank. You know, it's vicious. It's not something that you want to be getting into, but because people like the information, they end up getting into it inevitably. Why do you think that, you know, our people in particular don't understand the system when so many people are in it, people that they probably know or relatives or whoever it is? Why do they still not understand how vicious this system is?
Well, see, you and I had a conversation off the record once, and I said to you, if you want Reverend Sharpton, or if you want Michael Eric Dyson or Jesse Jackson, invite them. But if you invite me, you're going to get me. And this is one of the answers, all right? And so hopefully you all understand from the rip that you're getting me, raw and uncut. The reason why our people don't understand is because we trust a culture that is our antagonist. For lack of a better word, black people in America are prisoners of war. But the prisoner has adopted the mannerisms and the likenesses of the captive. And so if the captive says, the white ice is colder than black ice, black people run to get the white ice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although it is at 32 degrees. And if you look at the historic record of black people, they have, the community has consistently battled since so-called emancipation on whether they can be acceptable in America, whether America will accept them. And so therefore, the way you get acceptance in America, if you're black, is to show that you can be as good an American citizen as anybody else. And so forth. The acceptance of the white majority value system as being legitimate and working is something that we swallow whole the same way white America swallows it whole, that the system works. What we don't understand is that the system was designed to criminalize a particular community and protect another community from that criminalized community. Until we get to the point to where we understand that, until we get to the point to where our leadership is willing to say that in no uncertain terms and stop placating to the idea that the concept of we are all Americans, we are all equal, we want equality under that. Until we get to the point where we understand that this is actually a war that you have to fight, and criminal justice is their enforcement arm of the war. This is why your 13th Amendment says emancipation, freedom from slavery, except when you commit a criminal offense. Mm-hmm. They put it right there in your face to let you know. Now, all we got to do is criminalize you, and you're back in the position that you were as second-class citizens. We have to get to the point to where we recognize, and our leadership recognizes and is able to articulate to us that we have to be in the forefront of changing the dynamic of the system and thus changing the mindset of those people who find themselves in the system. When we get to the point where we say no to the system, no to whatever else is going on, they will say no to criminality, because we recognize that the idea of criminality is put in our community so that we can be the next victim of the criminal justice system.
Well, if that was the case, if that was the case, and you knew that the system was meant for white America and against black America, then what was your intent when you said yes to becoming a criminal law attorney and just going down that route? Did you truly believe that you could change the system while going in, or was it more like, hey, let me learn as much as I can so I can educate my community so they can stay away from the system?
Both. You come out of law school, you're idealistic, you want to conquer the world, you're young, you're effervescent, you're like saying, I'm going to fight the powers that be, I'm going to take this thing on, and I'm going to be the one who changes it, I'm going to be the one who educates it. And then you get into it and you realize all you're really doing is educating one person at a time, when the community needs to be educated thousands at a time. You understand? So you now have to begin to adjust your narrative or your battle strategy to be able to include more people, more ways of changing. So then that's why you pick up the pen. That's why you speak out. That's why you take on other aspects of the criminal justice system. And that's what it was with me. Originally, I thought, like, look, this is cake. I mean, I know I can be the next Charles Hamilton Houston. I know I could be the next Thurgood Marshall. I hope you finished the book, because you read the story I tell you about me and Thurgood Marshall. But I mean, that's the idealism. That's what they they pump you with that in law school. And frankly, if you come to law school with some sense of community, and I come from a well-developed community that needed help from 3 or 4 brothers who were from the same street corners as me, the same housing project as me, who we're going to go back to Jersey and we're going to turn this thing out. We're going to wreck this. All Muslims, ready to go. And then the reality of it smacks you in the mouth like bam. And if you ain't got no heart, you scour into a corner. If you got some heart, you come up fighting. But find that you fighting, you're spitting it into the wind. And then you have to come up with other strategies. You have to mature and begin to come up with other strategies that make the same impact that you hope to make when you were young and idealistic.
Yeah, it seems like to even get into the defense of those who are affected by the system, you got to have some grit. This isn't for the faint of heart. So let me ask you this, because you mentioned the system. You've kind of alluded to it not being a system that is inherently fair. So it begs me to ask a question: what is actually wrong with the system? Like, why is it not good for us to be in the system?
The first thing is, if you recognize that the system is created by people who enslaved you and wrote you out of the social dynamic of the system, then you understand that there's a problem inherently in it. The problem that goes back to Dred Scott: a black man has no right that a white man is bound to respect. We can come to an understanding of that. We start with that premise. And if you start with that premise, it's almost like your Miranda rights, right? Someone says you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. So they're saying that whatever you say, I'm going to use it against you. This is what they're saying. And so therefore, when you open up your mouth, because you think you can convince someone, he's saying, I don't care whether you tell him the truth or not, I'm going to use it against you. He's telling you that in his Miranda warning. It's the same thing. When you get into this system, the thing you have to understand is that it was designed to criminalize you. It was designed, like the education system, to make you seem and feel inferior. It was designed to make you bend to the whim of a culture and a value system that may be antithetical to who and what you are. If you come to an understanding of that, then you fight like hell to stay out of it. If you never come to that understanding, then you find yourself a victim because you never understood that it was designed for you, that you are the product in this particular thing. Just like you were 3/5 human, you were a slave, you were a goat or a sheep, breeding, etc. You still are that if you never come to an understanding that the 13th Amendment was for you, prison was created for you, slave patrols were created for you. The vast majority of all the constitutional cases around criminal justice are about you. Stop and frisk is about you. Broken windows policing is about you. The drug war on drugs is about you. When you begin to put it together like that, then you begin to understand this is why you have to stay away from everything that has any connection to the people who are in control and have imposed their value system on it. That they are imposing it on it because they need you to be criminalized. They need you to be criminalized. Because once emancipation came, you almost became free if you were black in America, right? But you didn't become free. You became emancipated. And so they gave you a 13th Amendment and said, now how can we get them back to where we really need them to be, which is labor force, etc. I mean, think about it. Think about this historically. You ready? Ain't nobody gonna give you this, so I'm gonna give it to you. This is a tidbit. Black people were considered to be 3/5 of a human being. You know why? See, most people will tell you that that's like a racist thing that they wanted because they were dehumanizing. Well, it was dehumanizing in and of itself. But what it was that they couldn't determine whether or not they could count you as a whole human being for purposes of the census. Who was gonna get funding from the government? So the South wanted all their slaves counted. So they get more money. The North was like, well, we don't have slaves at that amount up here. So you're getting an advantage on people you don't even consider to be human. So they compromise at 3/5, right? So now if you have 3/5 of that particular human being as part of your census, you're getting the money. You're getting money by virtue of that. Where do you think the prison industrial complex does? That's inconsistent with 1776. When a person is arrested and they sent to a jail or a prison, that person is counted as part of the citizenship of that town. So you build all your prisons in rural areas that have no economy. You build a prison there, all the white boys get jobs there as overseers, and all the prisoners are counted as citizens there. So when you send your census in, you count the 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 prisoners that you have as part of your citizenship. They're not human beings, they're prisoners, but they're counted as the census, and so your money and your representation goes up. The exact same scenario that you had in 1776. The exact same thing. But we don't know it because nobody's telling us how they're using our bodies today the way they used our bodies back then.
I think it's insane, Brother Bashir, because I heard an interview that you said white America never constructs a plan without black America. And I just thought that was very, very interesting because just like you had mentioned, the system wasn't meant, obviously, for slaves and African Americans, but they had a place written in for them the whole time, right? So no matter what it is, and people are like, okay, well, if this system doesn't work for us, then let's go ahead and make our own system. But then we tried doing that. So what happened with Black Wall Street? They came and took it right back down. So with this system, right, do you think that just as human beings, we don't know our rights? A lot of people always talk about the Second Amendment, the 13th Amendment. They go back in history. But like you said, a lot of people just incriminalize themselves. Do we just not know our rights or just not taught to us?
We don't know our rights. We don't know our rights because, frankly, it's something I always say when I lecture. I don't know if I didn't borrow this from anybody, so I have to take credit for it, therefore I have to live with it. If every drug dealer in the country got together, or every drug dealer in the city got together and said, we're not going to sell drugs, illegal drugs on Wednesday. You ready? The culture on Thursday would pass a law saying it's illegal to conspire to not sell drugs. Because you don't have the authority to be in control of your life if you're black in America until you take the system on. If you got together, if every drug dealer got together and said, no drug dealing sold on Wednesday, the culture on Thursday would pass a law saying it's illegal to conspire to not sell drugs. I'm telling you a fact. You don't believe it? All you got to do is look at each and every law that is passed in the United States over here. I'll give you an example. Let's take the drug laws. Back 25 years ago, when I was 30 years ago, I decided to get involved and get my hands dirty. Possession was a simple possession was a probationary sentence, right? Possession with intent was when you tried to sell, distribute, hand off, or you distribute. So you got distribution or possession with intent to distribute, right? So the young kids got smart. They stopped being allowed to be doing it. So they moved it to areas where they could be out of the way of the...
From where they're at, yeah.
So the police couldn't get them. So what did they do? They went in and passed a law saying it's illegal to sell drugs within 1,000 feet of a park, a school, or school property. And it didn't matter whether the school property is open, closed, or abandoned.
Wow.
So if I'm near a school building, that's what the law is in almost every jurisdiction. They changed the law because the kids changed their behavior. What happened then? The kids decided, okay, we're not going to sell out on the street corner like you on the wire, right?
Yeah. We're
going to take it inside. What did they do? The next day they passed a law saying it's illegal to sell drugs and to a prison sentence within 500 feet of public housing, right? And that's the law, and that's exactly what they did, right? So now you start out with just simple possession and possession with intent, or possession and distribution. You move from possession with intent or within 1,000 feet or distribution within 1,000 feet. You make an adjustment on how you're going to hustle. Now you got what? Within the 500 foot of a public housing project. That's where all the cats is hustling at. They trying to take it and do it so they can't be seen. So you pass a law saying it's illegal to do that.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, look, and all you got to do is sit there in one trial and hear that your no-knock warrants, right? You just had a no-knock warrant on Breonna Taylor, right?
Yep.
Your no-knock warrants are, they're going to destroy evidence inside. You don't know if there's evidence inside, but The no-knock warrants allows you to go in, knock without knocking, crashing, because the whole idea is they may destroy evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But every no-knock warrant that I've ever seen in 28 years of practice says two things: to prevent destruction of evidence, and they ask for a no-knock warrant because the person on the other side of the door may be violent. The two never come together. They don't make sense. If the person on the other side of the door may be violent, may have guns, that's the time you want to knock.
Exactly.
I want to kick the door into the cat you're waiting on the other side with an AK-47, right? It doesn't make sense, right? They don't come together, right?
Yeah.
The destruction of evidence is secondary to my life. So again, they adjust the law to fit whatever circumstance it is that keeps you in the position of second-class citizenship. And as Malcolm would say, Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, and I say this not in any detriment of anybody else's thought process, but if you black and you not thinking black at this late date, I feel sorry for you. That's what he said. And so that's what this thought process is. If you're the victim and you're not thinking like how the system is victimizing you, how the system is impacting on you at this late date, I feel sorry for you.
So how do you go in and fight the system? Because as you said, from Jump Street, the system is already against you. There is no escaping that. In the best way, as they say with, to not get pregnant, the best way is abstinence, right? Like just not to do it at all, not to even get close to it, right? But we know that that's a very harsh reality. That's something that's, it's almost unavoidable in a lot of ways, right?
Right.
How best is it that we can either operate within the system or change the system? Or is it farcical to even think that we can change the system?
You have to, in my humble opinion, this is just my humble opinion, you have to attack the system on all fronts. You have to have people in the system, but they have to have a mindset of not reform, but restructuring, almost to the point of revolution. But they have to be in the system to do it. So you can't have your caucus the way it is now. These cats are in it for appeasement. They want to be seen as good Americans. Kind of like the old soldiers that go off to fight in the Civil War, the black soldiers. If we fight in the Civil War, we show the Union, then when we win, they'll treat us equally. World War I, if we go and fight for the country, they'll treat us equally. World War II, if we go and fight for the country, they'll treat us equally. I mean, you've seen that mantra over and over and over. What's the same thing in criminal justice? It's the same thing with leadership. These are people who are there hoping that the culture will bend in a direction, not those who are there to shape the culture. They're not Adam Clayton Powell's out. They're John Lewis's. They are, as Malcolm would say, they love the master more than the master loves himself.
Good.
They love the culture of America more than America loves itself. And so therefore dealing with the system creates, you almost have to abstain, but you have to fight on every level because people aren't going to. See, they aren't going to because every aspect of the system leads you to criminal justice. Remember I said to you, criminal justice is just the enforcement arm. The enforcement arm of your unemployment policy, where black people have historically been 3 to 5 times more unemployed intentionally than white people.
Wow.
Where they don't get the GI Bill and get to use it to create wealth, a systemic wealth. They don't get the loan. So then, therefore, what do? You go to the guy in the corner who's the loan shark. You go out in the street corner and you hustle cigarettes. You hustle CDs. You hustle. And then occasionally you find those cats who say, well, look, the hell with it. I can't get into the system any other way. Let me flip this kilo. You know what I mean? So it's a culture that drives everything toward making sure that you remain as a black man or a black woman in America, a second-class citizen, and then the enforcement arm, boom, is criminal justice. So you can't avoid, if you can't do a total restructuring of the system, you're going to understand that you are constantly going to face the criminal justice penalties. It always is going to come down harder on you because the structure of the system, the totality of the system has been put in place so that you stay at the bottom and have to scramble for whatever is left at the bottom.
And so very quickly, just to clarify, because we have listeners that are all over the world. We got white, black, and every color and hue in between. When you say we, I know initially you mean African Americans, people of African descent, black people, right? But still, people of color of any kind fall within the system. Latinos, Asians, people of Arab descent, they all fall within that. The system doesn't work for you, just at different degrees, correct?
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, but the understanding has to be that the system starts with racism, white supremacy. Don't ever, when somebody discusses racism with you, allow them to separate white supremacy from it. Because racism, white supremacy is what gives you your hierarchy. Whites at the top, and those are wealthy whites. Blacks are always at the bottom. And then everybody else falls in between. And the question is whether or not everybody else in between will accept their role in racism, white supremacy. That is, your role is you're a second-class citizen, but these black people at least doing better than. You understand? So even poor whites who should be siding with blacks economically, who should be siding with so-called black people as it relates to what they have done and added and contributed to the culture. They at least will vote for someone like a Donald Trump or someone like anybody who comes along and says, I can keep those niggas in their place. At least you'll stay one step ahead of those black people. And so therefore they vote against their interests because they believe that they'll be kept one step ahead of black America, the slave, the person who this culture, this criminal justice system, these systems of oppression were designed for. So if you can convince your East Indian who comes over here fleeing Delhi persecution, or your Egyptian coming over here, your African coming over here, that they can stay one step ahead of those N-words. Can I say nigga on your broadcast? Because I'm trying not to.
Go ahead, let them know. Yeah, you can.
Oh, because that's the way they think. I'm not calling anybody a nigga. I'm just trying to be as generic as possible. If you can stay one step ahead of those niggas, then you feel like, okay, I can make it in America.
Yeah. And
that's really what the design is. That's why the slave, the ex-slave is at the bottom, because that ex-slave represents, there has to be a bottom in this hierarchy, and everybody else who comes here has to feel like they're better than. So the white supremacist gives them that little tidbit of you're better than him. And therefore, those who come, like Dominicans kicking out Haitians, they're the same people, but they argue like they're not, feel like they're better because their skin is lighter. It's all about white racism, white supremacy. So don't let anybody convince you that racism is a thing separate and apart by itself. It has connected, an intimate connection to white supremacy.
I mean, every time they talk about racism, white supremacy, you said one thing right now in regards to culture, right? But wasn't the culture changed when Barack Obama became the president? African Americans, and we had a black attorney general at that time, when we like, hey, we're actually moving up here in status and we need to have more respect. Do you believe that the 8-year terms that he had kind of changed that for us?
I think that the 8-year terms that he has helps you understand why black people are second-class citizens and how they become second-class citizens. Remember, I just said that there was a hierarchy. The hierarchy is whites on top. Those people who are willing to serve whites on top and blacks on the bottom always have a modicum of success. Barack Obama is within that range. He just was the black face of white supremacy. Do you understand? Imagine this. Barack Obama, we're talking criminal justice. I don't want to do international foolishness, but let's just talk criminal justice. Barack Obama had, at least my understanding, there's like 20 investigations into various cities that had a police citizen problem. Cleveland, Ohio, Tamir Rice. Baltimore, Freddie Gray. Pick a city, Seattle, Houston. And what did he do? I mean, because there were a number of these that happened on his watch, and none of these killings, Sean Bell, all these happened on Obama, right? Trayvon Martin, for heaven's sakes, Mike Brown, all these are under Obama's watch. So here's what you do when you talk about whether or not you've risen and whether or not he falls within that hierarchy that says black people are meant to be at the bottom. Grab a hold of the legislation that said, I'm going to change this. I have to fix this. There is none. What you have is consent decrees. You know what consent decrees are?
No, we do not.
Those are those things that you go in and you negotiate, you investigate, you send the Justice Department in, that black man, Eric Holder, or that black woman, Loretta Lynch. They investigate. And each one determine what? That the constitutional rights of the citizens of these black majority cities were being violated with impunity. Ferguson, Missouri, Baltimore, Maryland, or wherever you go. And then they sit down with the police department in the city and come up with an agreement saying that we're going to police better.
Yeah.
Tell me where the prosecutions are, though. Because if you're telling me that these people are consistently violating my rights and violating the rights of their citizens, where's the prosecutions? Where are the people going to jail for violating my rights?
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Gray deserved more than what Freddie Gray got if the police there are as violating the rights that the Justice Department found. Tamir Rice deserved more. Who's the man and the woman who had 137 shots into their car? They deserve more. But that tells you the nature of what it is that happens when white supremacy is the overarching part of racism, and the people underneath that believe that the system works. So therefore, they're always bumping their heads against white supremacy, always trying to find a place to fit in within white supremacy. And Obama is one of those guys on the domestic side who is trying to fit in to white supremacy. Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder. They had the Homeland Security guy was also black. And people always say to you, oh, well, if the Republicans held him up, this, that, and the third. Mm-hmm. They didn't hold him up on gay rights.
Nice.
They didn't hold them up on Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to always hold people always seem to get held up when it comes to criminal justice being the enforcement arm of every system that is impacting on black people. Do you know that it was Ronald Reagan and Joe Biden who put together the first crime bill back in the 60s summer, right?
Now, yeah.
And the second one comes along under Bill Clinton, and that's where they get that 100-to-1 disparity, meaning that if you sell crack cocaine, if you sell 1 gram of crack cocaine, you can get penalized as if you sold 100 grams of cocaine, because cocaine was being sold by white boys on Wall Street and in Hollywood, and crack cocaine was being sold on the street corner. A racist disparity. What did Obama do with that? Everybody applauded when he reduced the disparity from 100-to-1 to 18-to-1.
Wow.
Whatever happened to 1-to-1?
Right.
You can't have crack without cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to 1-to-1? You understand? So that means, let's do it in jail time. If I got caught with 1 gram of cocaine and you got caught with 100 grams, 1 gram of crack and you got caught with 100 grams, right? And we both got the same sentence, and we get 1 year, right? Mm-hmm. But let's assume we got the sentence by virtue of the grams we had. You would get 100 years because you got 100 times more than I had. So your penalty, you would think, would be 100 times more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then why am I getting penalized more for having less? It's because we don't know the law, we don't understand who we are in the system, and there aren't enough people inside the system fighting to actually change it. I don't mean reform it. I mean actually literally take it to the back courtyard, stick it in the middle of a Minneapolis riot, and let somebody burn it.
Yeah.
Until they get it right.
So when we look at the 3 branches of government, then, you know, as you said in the book, Raw Law, you have the executive, which are the enforcers of the law. The law is actually made by the legislation, right? And then the judicial, there we go. Look, this book right here, make sure y'all go and buy this. Like, if y'all haven't got this, make sure you go. This is mandatory reading, especially if you are black in this country. It is mandatory.
Especially right now.
Like, I'm lucky that I grew up with family members who have been in the system, wrongfully convicted to be in the system. So I learned a good amount of these things from my family members, just being around it, certain conversations. But I couldn't imagine where I would be I couldn't imagine where people are without knowing a lot of this information, because it's necessary. Like it's essential to your survival to know a lot of the things in this book, I forgot what the question I was asking.
Appreciate that. I hope. Well, you're asking about the 3 branches.
Oh, okay. So when you have the 3 branches, you're basically what you're saying is we don't necessarily need more people in the executive branch, more enforcers or the police, right? We need more people on the judicial side, so judges, and more people that can influence legislation. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're getting at?
Right. I think on all levels you need more people who are conscious of the history, more people who are willing to make a change. So if you can get an executive that has a cops are on the executive branch. If you can get more police officers who are willing to look at the history and enforce the law based on what they know to be the history, then you don't have a problem. You now have people willing out there to fight. Think about this. A man is arrested for selling loose cigarettes, right? He's arrested for selling loose cigarettes. A loose cigarette. You got to put him in handcuffs to arrest him for loose cigarettes. Think about the mentality. I mean, look, I could write you a summons right now and say, be in court on Monday and go on about your business and put your cigarettes to the side. Mm-hmm. But you don't have people who think like that, who say, wait a minute, it's not worth arresting this man and thus risking him resisting and thus risking his life and thus putting him in a position to where he's going to get a chokehold over loose cigarettes. We don't think like that. The culture doesn't think like that. The people who are in charge of forcing the law are blue before they're black. Blue before they're they're not blue before they're white, all right? Mm-hmm. Because the blue and the white are consistent in the value system. Nothing wrong with being white, so don't get that wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the white value system is antithetical to what it is to be black in America. You understand? So, but the blue, that is that uniform, everybody who signs on to that, almost everybody, winds up being blue, which means they wind up upholding a white value system and a white way of doing things. Mm-hmm. Same thing with your legislation. You get into the halls of Congress, you get into the city council, etc. Did you forget that you grew up in the city of East Orange? You forget you grew up in the bios of New Orleans? You can't bring shirt and tie. You didn't do shirt and tie when you was in New Orleans, in Baltimore. Yeah. Now you in Congress and you're doing shirt and tie. It's not shirt and tie, bruh. It's bang. Let's bang. I came here to bang. I want to change this. Mm. You know this, and you got to approach it like that. Same thing with your judiciary. Everybody will tell you over the next 6 months, get out and vote, because look at what Trump is doing with your judiciary. Here's what you do. Go back before Trump and look at the most recent decisions, Supreme Court decisions. Look at your appellate court decisions and see how many of them were influenced by so-called Democratic appointments. Mm-hmm. And see if there's a remarkable difference. Because they all see the world the same way. They see it exactly the same way the police who's going to bust you in your head see it. You are the miscreant. You're the one in trouble. You deserve to have the knee on your neck. Stop resisting. Mm-hmm. How many times have you seen the videos where the cop is yelling, stop resisting, the guy's laying there on his stomach, and he's saying, I'm not resisting, and why are you punching me? And the people on the sideline filming saying, why are you punching him? Stop resisting. And their mind resisting. But that's the nature of it. So on the interior of the system, you have to be willing to step into it, the outside, and rock it. Absolutely rock it on every level.
Can you say that? Can you say that again? I
always call on people, look.
Can you say that again? You said it again? Yeah, can you just repeat that really quick, please?
Yeah, if you're in the system, you have to be willing to change it. And if you're on the outside, you have to be willing to rock. You have to be willing to shake it until it almost throws up. Mm-hmm. Wow. Think about this. You got Allah gave us 2 blessings. Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz and Martin Luther King, a Christian and a Muslim, at the same time. I'm not even going to get into Brother Herschel. That's a Jew. All right? But I'm just going to deal with the Christian and the Muslim. At the same time and same place, they are occupying America. And one is saying, burn it down, battle of the bullet. If you don't give us what we want, we're going to fight you for it. And another one is saying, nonviolent protest and appealing to the moral fiber of the people will get you where you want to go. One on the outside of the system, one working on the inside of the system. And you know what happened? Malcolm gives the speech, The Battle of the Bullet, in 1964. Right on the heels of that, 1963. Right on the heels of that, a young boy is shot in Rochester, New York, young black boy by a cop. And the people take to the streets, ready to wage it. Another boy is shot in Harlem. The people take to the streets and ready to wage it. Martin Luther King, however, is arrested and placed in the Alabama Birmingham jail. And he writes a letter, strategic letter, brilliant man. And he says to the people and to the country, either you're going to have to deal with me or you're going to have to deal with them. Now, who you want to deal with? What do you think happens right after that? The government now has to make a choice. They ain't ready for no all-out rebellion of black people on the street. They haven't gotten their gears. COINTELPRO is just is like a fledgling destroy black people. They haven't gotten to the point to where they feel like they can assassinate you and get away with it. They have to try that experiment with Malcolm. But they chose King. This is why you get your Civil Rights Act in 65. Do we want war in the streets here and we're not ready for it? Now they're ready for it now, by the way. They're ready for it now. But that's what this decision was. Do we want war in the streets or can we do something to appease these black people until we regroup? So, and they gave you the Civil Rights Act and they began to plan against black militancy, not against black people in and of itself, but against black militancy. And they tell you over and over and over because they believe they could co-opt and control black people through the leadership that black people had if militancy wasn't on the table. So you have to be willing to wage it on one side of the thing and be able to change it on the inside.
So with people being on the inside and the outside, one thing that we all know is that the police, the judicial system, everything that's meant for here sees everything through the eyes of white America, just as you had mentioned. That's the standard. If that's the case, is education enough? People keep saying the police just need more training. They need to know how to deal with black people. And then we're coming in and saying, and companies now are saying, hey, we're off today for Blackout Tuesday. We're teaching everybody about anti-racism. Is education enough, or do those people just need to get out of the way and we just need to, like you said, reconstruct?
You ever been to a cookout?
Yeah.
You ever been to a black American cookout? Name me two things you expect to find at a black American cookout. Come on, don't be shy.
Food and music.
All right, so now you know that when you go to a black American cookout, and if you go to a black American cookout and you don't have food and music, a black American. Am I right?
Yeah.
All right, so if you understand that, then treat that the exact same way that you treat police, citizen. Now, police and police officers aren't just walking in and grabbing a badge. They're walking in with every piece of baggage, every piece of history, every piece of education that they have. In America, if you're in America and educated in the American system, you're taught what? You're taught Christ discovered America. You're taught that Thomas Jefferson was a hero. You're taught that George Washington was a great man. He's a founding father. My father would kill me if I referred to him as a father of any kind. Right. But you're not taught that these were slave owners. You're not taught that these were the people who exterminated, who began the extermination of Native Americans. You're not taught that about them. But you are taught to hate everything that they hate. They say they hate injustice. But how can they hate injustice after what they did to the Native Americans and to Africans? How can they hate that? So either you're confused by the education that you're getting from them, or they're confused. But they hold on to it. Why? Because it's their history. They are writing the history. So now, take that and put a badge on. All right? Because that first badge came from tracking down escaped slaves. The same people, that same negative connotation, that they are no good, they are not worthy, that they have no right, that a white man is bound to respect. This is the history. So even now, when you start talking about retraining them, what are you retraining them on? Who would be retraining them? Who would retrain a cop? He's coming to the barbecue expecting what he gets at the barbecue. These black people don't know how to act. This is what I've been taught about them. So regardless of what training you think you can give to them, you're not giving them that training. So now, you want to change it? You make sure that if any act of violence from a cop, any kind, whether it's a resisting arrest or anything like that, where you take somebody down, you take them off the street immediately. Because it's an intense job.
Yep.
It's an intense job, and it's volatile. At any minute, it could explode. At any minute, you can explode. So you take him off, give him a chance to relax, recoup, get his head together. And then you'll get a better understanding as to where his head is. Because if he goes back out in the street and he's violent again, you say that we don't want that cat on the street. So that's the way you begin to change it. You take him off immediately when something like that happens. You also have to be able to give these guys psych evaluations. The minute they come off the street of something violent, what happens with you? I mean, think about it. Remember you got into 5th grade, you got into a fight, took you to the office, and the principal sat you down, and he tried to talk you down, right? They tried to talk you down. Why do you think the suicide rate among military and the police are the highest in the country?
PTSD.
Because they never come down. They never come down. They walk into a community, majority black, and everybody looks at them like the pariah that they are, because they are occupying force, and they feel it. But they're emboldened. They got guns, mace, nightsticks, and the power of the state behind them. So they're emboldened. They're more powerful out in the streets than anybody.
So
and if you flinch,
So do you feel that a part of trying to combat police brutality is that police need to actually there needs to be laws in place that make them more responsible for when these things happen? Because it seems as though when these things happen, when they they assault a citizen, mostly unarmed, that there's no sort of repercussion that is equal to the offense. Like killing somebody, like what we recently saw with George Floyd, the consequence doesn't equal the offense. So do you feel like if it's upheld, if it's enforced, like with no sort of like fluff around it, that it will actually curb that?
I think that if you go through the law, you'll find out that they have qualified immunity, meaning that you can't really sue them except under certain limited circumstances. So you never can sue them individually. So they don't have to compensate the victim of their negligence or of their arrogance or of their anger. You never have to compensate the victim. It's always compensated by the state or by actually the citizen paying to get his own butt kicked. All right? So they know that when they go in. They have a union that trains them that they have certain rights that they can maneuver around the particular incident, and so therefore they go out into the street with that kind of confidence because they know that their union is going to make sure they have a lawyer, they're going to make sure that their bills are paid, they're going to make sure that that the contract that they have says they don't have to give a statement except for 48 hours, foolishness like that. All right, and that their brothers in blue are going to back them up because they are blue. They're not black. They're not black Americans. Not white Americans. They are blue Americans at that. Okay. They're going to back them up. All right, and so they know that they go out into the street with that, armed with that. So when they commit an act of violence, like Floyd, they really truly believe that they have some level of justification because their training says, just like you go into the cookout, they're going to have some barbecue chicken and they're going to play the electric slide. And that's what they see. They are going out there with the same understanding that they have, regardless of whether you train them on sensitivity training and all this kind of stuff. Now, think about this. In Pittsburgh, an officer was fired last year. You know why he was fired? He was an Afghan war veteran, white boy. He was an Afghan war veteran. He gets a job in the West Virginia Police Department. All right, I said Pittsburgh, but it was West Virginia, I believe. So he gets a job at the West Virginia Police Department. He's on patrol one day. He gets a phone call. In that phone call, at least a dispatch. The dispatcher person on the phone is telling the dispatcher that her brother or her nephew or her son is trying to commit suicide. She believes he's going to kill himself. Can you come help? He immediately goes to the spot. He's a war veteran. He knows in Afghanistan, people might run out anytime, so he just can't pop everybody on the street. So he had some level of discernment. Some level of humanity is still stuck in him. He sees this kid, the kid has a gun. He sees the kid has the gun by his side, and he says, please drop the gun. Give him the forceful command that he's supposed to get. Good training, right? Mm-hmm. The kid says, no, shoot me, shoot me. He realizes that it's suicide by cop. I'm not going to shoot this kid. So he tries to talk the kid down. He's like, no, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. Just put the gun down. I can help you. This, that, and the third. As he's doing that, the same dispatcher apparently had dispatched other cars, right? Another car shows up with 2 officers in it. They see the kid with the gun. They see the other officer trying to talk him down. They run up, pull out their weapons, turns toward them with the gun. Boom, they pop 2 bullets in his head. The kid is dead.
Oh, my God.
That's not the good part. All right? Because it shows you the mentality. They have to do reports. So they do an internal affairs investigation. The cop who's from Afghanistan, who saw it was suicide by cop, who saw that he believed he could talk the kid down, who didn't shoot the kid, they asked him, what happened? He confirmed that these officers may not have known what he was doing because they arrive and it almost happens immediately. So he's backing them. But they ask him, why didn't you shoot the kid? And they fire him because he did not shoot the kid, saying he put the other officers in jeopardy of their life with that situation. And the gun was unloaded. The kid's gun was unloaded. Now here's a guy who's trying to do the job right. Training. He had the training, etc. And the cats that come along and pop the kid, this is what they want as it relates to training. This is what they believe is important. The protection of the officer, not the life that's out there on the street. This is what the guy in Minneapolis is blocking the people from being able to see what the officers are doing. Mm-hmm. He's protecting them. He's not protecting the guy on the ground choking. He's protecting the officers. He knows that there's something not right. Everybody's telling him he's choking. He can't breathe. You're killing him. That chokehold is designed to kill. I know. One of the guys says, I've taken jiu-jitsu. I know what that chokehold does. No. You can train all you want to. People have to bring a heart to the job and then a history, an understanding of the history in order for them to perform the job. And if you recognize that in America, the history is that black people have no right that a white man is bound to respect, then what do? You take that part of it, and that's why you have to begin to monitor them almost immediately. A guy commits a violent act, take him off the street, get him psychological evaluation, test his blood. 1/4 of all cops are alcoholics. Two-thirds of all cops use drugs.
Lord.
This is the kind of stuff that you have to, if you know that, if there's been statistical studies all over that suggest these things, if you're really concerned about the law enforcement officers, these are the things that you should be doing. Take them out of harm's way. Mm-hmm. Don't give them a chance to get volatile. Don't give them a chance to push a 75-year-old man down and smash his head.
Yeah.
He's not. You understand? So you can train all you want to. You think those guys who pushed that old man down weren't trained? Oh, yeah. I mean, he wasn't dealing with a black man. Mm-hmm. So what are you training him on? I mean, I can understand you saying, okay, he pushed a black man down. Okay, they don't know black people. They pushed a 75-year-old white man down. The kids that they are beating up during these riots are young white kids.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You get to see it on the video because they want you to believe that the only volatile people out there are black people. But it's the cops beating up young white kids because what? They understand. We're supposed to protect you, and you sign with them, you deserve to get your butt kicked.
I mean, but then at the same time,
how do you train around that?
At the same time, we hear people say that, hey, there are good cops, and a few bad apples shouldn't ruin the batch, right? And then I heard a stand-up from Chris Rock saying that you can't really say the same thing for pilots, you know? Hey, we have an airline here, we have a few bad apples. They do run into...
they do crash.
They do crash every once in a while, you know? And I thought that was brilliant that he said that because, like you had mentioned earlier about the officer, he had 12 complaints on him before he murdered like George Floyd. It's like, dude, how can you be at any job and have like 12 referrals, 12 times being written up? Like, no matter who you are, you wouldn't make it. But we think it's okay when it comes to the police. Like, why is that?
Right.
You know, like, why can't we criticize? And then when we criticize the police, everybody's like, no, don't do that. Like, why don't we have that freedom?
Again, think about who it is that's criticizing. The person who has no voice. The person who has no right that a white man is bound to respect. When I say white man, I'm not talking about white people generically. I'm talking about the system of white supremacy. They don't have to respect you. And so who are you to criticize? That's what they're saying. Who are you to criticize?
Wow.
That's really all they're saying. Yeah. You know, you don't have that kind of a right. What makes you think you have that right? When did you get that right? When did the Constitution ever apply to you?
Never.
I seen that loud and clear.
No. See, that's the part that, again. But if you go to Congress and you listen to these debates and you listen to your congressional black caucuses and your progressive caucuses, you actually walk away thinking that you have a right.
Yeah.
Until something like that jumps off. Something like the sister in Louisville, the brother in Louisville, Brother Yaya, the barbecue man.
Oh yeah.
Right?
To the right.
Both from John, his old apartment. When you see those, they want you to treat them as isolated incidents, but they are consistent with every aspect of the system. Don't lose track of the fact that black people are unemployed and frankly unemployable. That black wealth in totality is like $5. Family wealth is like $5 compared to white wealth is somewhere like 24,000. And think about this: with all the billionaires and millionaires, you got your Jay-Z's, your LeBrons, your Kobe's. They counted in that black group, and you still only have mass wealth of only $5 per family. You can't transfer any wealth like that. You can't build any culture like that because the system has made sure that you never step forward. But you have to step forward. You have to keep fighting. You have to challenge the system. And that's why when you ask me why did I stay in there, that's why. Because people have to know. People have to have people willing to fight when they can't fight for themselves. That's just the nature of the beast.
So if we go back to what you were saying about police, right? Police have a code. It's blue versus you, essentially. I just came up with that. I think it's pretty brilliant.
It rhymes. I got a beat for it too.
So in reading in Raw Law, you gave a very detailed story about a particular instance where there was a good cop that helped save somebody from being another statistic of a person of color being beat to death because they say he was reaching for a gun or resisting arrest, right? But what ends up happening to this cop is that, as what happened to the brother that was trying to prevent the suicide by cop, he gets fired, right? No one wants to hire him because now he's seen as being in opposition to the code. Can police? Like within can police?
Bruh, that's why you have to have people who go into it with a different mentality than the blue. They have to go in to do the job, the one that they describe to you in civics, to protect and to serve. The one who goes out and climbs the tree to get the cat out. The one who stops by and drinks the lemonade with the little kid at the lemonade stand. Yeah. Bruh, but if you a lemonade stand sales in the black community, they lock you up for not having a permit.
Right.
There's a viral, there are two viral videos. A young boy, 13 years old, is selling waters in a mall. And the cops lock him up because he doesn't have a permit. He can't spell permit. He just trying to get some money to get some sneakers.
Come on, man.
You know what I mean? But this is the way we treat him. You know? But that the protect and the serve aspect of it is missing in our community because they believe they have control of our community in a way that when you step outside of that, you have a problem. Remember the young boy who was cutting grass, trying to make money by cutting people's grass. And so he got a little bit of on somebody, and they went out to lock him up. And the community had to literally come out and say, he's cutting our grass. This is a benefit to us. Yeah. But he was 15, 14, and they were going to lock him up for cutting grass, bruh. That's the way they see it. Because they see it as blue. that against you is enforcement. With everybody else, it may turn out to be enforcement, but they give you every benefit of the doubt on protection and serve until the last minute, especially if they're European. But if they're black or they're so-called brown, and I hate color descriptions of people, I'm doing it because I'm talking to you right now. But if you're black and you're brown and you got an accent, they see you in a different way that you have no right, that they have to respect. So therefore you can get arrested and handcuffed and body slammed over selling CDs on the corner. Something that's a misdemeanor anyway. That's at best a $200 fine. But you done lost your life over a $20 bill. I mean, come on. What kind of mentality is that?
Could you right now let us know, bring us into your world, like the step-by-step process when somebody gets locked up by the police, what happens, and some of the conversations are had before they meet you? For example, they get booked, handcuffs, fingerprints at a young age. Right. Can you tell us step-by-step before they come see you and what somebody is thinking at that time?
Okay, let's do it a juvenile. Let's start with a juvenile.
Okay.
A juvenile is somebody who's usually under 18, in places like New York is under 16. All right? That's probably a kid who may not have had any trouble before. And let's take this typical scenario. In New York, they had a case where they put stop frisk on trial and determined that it was unconstitutional, right? Judge Shineland ruled that it was unconstitutional, and over a 10-year or 8-year period, there were over 5 million stops. 90% of them were black kids. None of them, maybe 2% revealed contraband. So the kid is scared from the beginning. The kid doesn't know he's not supposed to talk, right? But he fits the description. He's a Trayvon. He fits the description. He's young, black, wearing a hoodie. That's all they need. So they walk up on him. They know they got a robbery out there, and he's scared. The first thing that I want to do, or that his family should do, is have to understand that if he gets picked up by the police, he's a juvenile, they are not supposed to talk to him at any time. Not at all. He's a juvenile. He has the right to have his mother there and counsel, even if he doesn't ask for it. He's a juvenile. He doesn't have the capacity to be able to make that decision. So when you start talking about, do you understand your rights? No, he doesn't understand his rights. He doesn't understand what a right is, first of all. So if you're the parent, you make sure that, as I said in the book, don't go down to the police precinct with him talking about, Junior, just be honest with you, they'll let you go. You saw that in If They See Us. Don't go down there talk about, if you just tell them what it is, they'll let you out. Because that's what they'll tell you. If he just tell us what happened, blah, 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 he'll be gone, and we'll give him a little summons and et cetera, and he'll be all right. Because the only people who can really help him is me, and I'm right here, da, da, da. And the parents go in there feeling embarrassed because the kid got arrested. When they call me, I say, Ma, what are you doing? Dad, what are you doing? I'm going down to the police precinct. I need you to meet me down there. Can you do me a favor, Ma? Meet me down there, but keep your mouth shut. Don't say a word. Because the first thing they'll do is feel embarrassed. Their son got arrested. All these good, nice cops are around, especially the brother from the block who he grew up with, who's a cop now, who's thinking blue, but he's still thinking black. And he says, yo, what you gonna do about my son, man? If your son just, give a statement, they'll get him out of here right away. And the son doesn't know what the crime is. All he knows is that he was on Freeland Heights and Avenue in North at about the same time as this robbery. The statement that I was on Freeland Heights and Avenue put you in proximity to the robbery. But if you don't know that if you say that, you're putting yourself in proximity, that's one less thing that they have to prove against you. Because they already got the hoodie that looks like the hoodie that the guy was wearing. So that's 2 things. They already got you black. That's 3 things. Now all you need is a witness to come in and say, yeah, he looks like the guy. Boom. You in trouble. You done gave him 3 out of the 4. So I'm telling him, keep your mouth shut. Mom, Dad, don't go in there being self-righteous like, oh, that my son, he's a good boy, this, that, and the third, da, 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 da. Do you know that when you say mom goes down, she says, my son is a good boy, she takes herself out as being a witness. Something as simple as that.
What do you say?
The other night, I'll give you an example. The other night on CNN, the lawyer for the brother who was in the car with Mr. Floyd was on with his lawyer. He was on with his lawyer. And Chris Cuomo was trying to question him. And the lawyer stopped her and said, Mr. Cuomo, I'm here to represent him. Anything that he says here could potentially be used to impeach his credibility in the matter goes to grand jury or when it goes to the trial. So I'm not letting you talk to him about any facts. I gave the TV a high five. It was the first time. it was the first time, this is no joke, in 28 years that I ever saw a black lawyer do that. They usually sit back and let the person talk, and then when they get to the grand jury, anything that they use that is inconsistent, anything that's inconsistent, boom, they say, see, we can't trust his testimony. Mike Brown, right? The guy who was with Mike Brown, when the Don Lemons of the world go out there, they stick a microphone in his face. Mike didn't do anything. He's crying because his boy is laying there in the middle of the street. Mike didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. We just found out business. The cop just shot him. Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. You know what they questioned him about when he got into the grand jury? What was Mike doing in the store? We were in the store, blah, 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 blah. Did you guys buy some herb? Well, you know, it's still, but I thought you said Mike didn't do anything. And so therefore, the prosecutor was able to say he's not credible as a witness because he had contradictory statements.
Wow.
So I'm already saying, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Your mouth is your enemy. Mike Brown, stick with, let's go back to Ford. All the people who are yelling. Can you hear me? Listen closely. All the people who are on the sideline yelling. Don't resist. Don't just lay there. Just lay there, George. Just lay there. Don't resist. You know what don't resist means to a cop and a lay person? When I'm questioning you on cross-examination and you said don't resist, I'll call you as a witness. Didn't you tell him not to resist?
Yeah.
Why would you say that if he wasn't resisting?
He wasn't resisting, yeah.
That doesn't make sense, Miss So-and-so. I know you upset that he died, but you told him not to resist too. You said the same thing the cop said. Absolutely, because they don't know. We just don't know. We don't know the rules of engagement. When he gets charged, he's getting charged with a complaint to start off, or let's start with a complaint. They have to write a probable cause statement in the complaint, and then they have to fill out a police report. Before I do anything with the case, even before I hear the kid's side, I want to see what the police have to say. You understand? Because the kid is going to be emotional. He's going to be running off at the mouth, etc. And I'm never going to reveal what the report says to him. Because then he'll start adopting what the report said. Just like you saw in If They See Us. The kids begin to adopt other people's stories. Right? Or they start saying what they think they want you to hear. But I can question them better if I have the police report. And the police report has or the complaint has a probable cause statement in it. We stopped him because of A, B, C, D, and E. I'm cool with that. Because now I begin to start thinking like a lawyer, starting to build my defense for it. Now I know where I can go to investigate. I know what street it was on. I know why the officers are saying this. I know they're lying. You know, I know they're lying. If you read the book, that was when I was 17 years in. And at that point, I'd only been involved in trials where only 3 cops, I thought, had testified to the whole truth. Wow. Only 3. Now, can you imagine what it's like after 30 years? I can literally say 6, that I can name them. That's how bad it is.
Good.
But I believe they actually told the truth at a trial. So in their report, same thing. So so I want to read the reports.
Why is it that they, if a cop goes in well-intentioned, how is it that they are turned that they are going to just lie? You know, when like how in your experience and with the people that you know who are on the force, how are they turned so crooked? Like how are they just now just a slave to the system themselves?
It's not a matter of turning them crooked. It's a matter of them accepting the narrative of what it is to be criminal, what it is to be the bad guy. And it's also that particular aspect of it where if I turn on another cop, will the other cops have my back? You got one in Buffalo, I think. The girl goes out, she tells on a cop who smacks a guy or something like that. When she goes out on her patrol, she sees a crime, she calls it in, no backup. No backup. This is the mentality. Think about this. So that you get a clear understanding of the mentality and why you have to bend with the breeze. Hopefully it doesn't break you, but you bend with the breeze, all right? 2 guys push an old man down in Buffalo, smash his head on the ground. He's bleeding from the ear. 1 officer goes to try to help him.
The other one, yeah.
Saw the video? And another officer pushes him away. That's problem number 1. The police there in Buffalo suspend the 2 officers who pushed the old man down because there's no reason for it. There's just no reason for it. The entire squad, 57 other officers, resigned from that particular squad in protection of those 2 officers, as a protest for those 2 officers. Wow. Think about the mentality. Where's the one that's stepping forward out of 57? So that 57 plus the 2, that's 59. Where's the ones that's stepping forward and saying, what you did was wrong, bruh? What you did was wrong. Or is it a locked-in mentality? You'll get your guy. Look, I believe they're good cops. I know. I can name you some right now. Some brothers who are probably listening, they listen to everything that I say, and I listen to everything that they say because they educate me each and every day. Guys I grew up with, I know where their hearts are. But they'll be the exception, and they'll do the thing right when they need to do it right. And that's all you can really hope for. Don't fool yourself into believing that a cop is going to see a guy draw down on a kid and pump a bullet at him when he's running with his back turned, and another cop is going to draw his weapon and say, put the gun down. Which is what they would do to you. See, because if you chased each other down the street with a gun, one chasing the other, and a cop saw you, one of y'all taking a bullet.
Yeah.
To defend against somebody. Regardless of how right you might be. Person might have just killed your mother in the house and is running out the house and you chasing it with your gun. Cop sees you with a gun, you getting popped. But they won't do that with each other. Can you imagine what it would be like if there was actually a cop out there who saw a kid getting pummeled on the ground and he ran and just boom, bum rush and knocked him off the kid?
So if that is the mindset of the police, right, the narrative that they've accepted, then with your experience, what is the mindset and narrative of lawyers? We know that public defendants can see so many people in one day, right? Some people are getting paid, some aren't. I mean, at that point, are you working as hard as you're getting paid, or are people out there really trying to serve justice? And at the same time, how can you serve justice when you feel like the police are lying and sometimes even seem that the lawyers are lying? Like, how do you see somebody that is seemed as not guilty but still come out a verdict as guilty?
Yeah, I was a public defender. I want you to take this analogy and run with it. I got, my last trial was attempted murder of a police officer. Wow. Not as a public defender, as a private attorney. But because I was retiring, it was like the last thing I had on my desk. I wasn't taking any more cases, right? So I'm just digesting this case. I'm ready when I go into the courtroom for this one. Now imagine I got 100 cases. Right? And I got to prepare all 100 cases. And the judge and the judge in my court wants me to have at least 5 ready each week for trial.
Wow.
I'm the public defender. Where do you think my focus is? I got 100 cases. This is what we're getting from the public defender. It doesn't mean that they're not sharp lawyers. It doesn't mean that they don't care about the people. It doesn't mean that they're even public pretenders, although many of them are. It means that the job is overwhelming.
Yep.
The job is overwhelming and underpaid. You know what I mean? The state pays all the bills for the prosecutor and pays the prosecutor, pays for their experts, pays for their investigation, pays for everything. You think the public defender can get that?
No.
Nah. And so therefore, when he comes to court and he sees you're charged with sexual assault because you squeezed your wife's booty, and she's mad at you anyway, right? So she files a complaint against you. And they charge you with sexual contact, which is a felony, right? And so the public defender looks at the file and says, oh, I can make this go away quickly because this is one less. Now I got 99 if I can make this go away. So you said to the prosecutor, yo, Mr. Prosecutor, plead the kid to a misdemeanor and let him go on about his business. And then he comes to you and you're the defendant. All you did was squeeze your wife's booty out on the outs anyway, but She got a fat booty. You like fat booties, right? So what do you do? What do you do? You sitting there, they talk about you locked up, you've been in jail for 4 days, right? Bruh, if you take this plea to a misdemeanor, it's a misdemeanor, you can have your record expunged in 3 years, you can have it expunged. Just anything to get me out of here. You take the plea. You don't know that when you took that plea to sexual contact, a misdemeanor, that it meant that you can't work in public, you can't work in any job that's connected to the public, that is government sponsored. So you happen to be a basketball coach at a public college. Immediately upon you taking that job, you are now assistant coach, and the head coach gets sick. You now leading this team and they're the top 3 in the country. And your record comes up that you have this misdemeanor and you can't work in a public institution. Your career's shot as a coach over something as simple as that. But he got 99 cases now. He ain't got to worry about that. Because in his mind, the misdemeanor doesn't hurt you. Because he doesn't understand the full picture of it.
It's like a warning.
And so therefore, he's just cleaning up some records. He's not a bad guy. He's just doing what he believes is best for you at that moment because he doesn't have time to invest in who you are.
Yeah.
And what your goals are, what your dreams are. And therefore you eat it. That's what they mean when they say public pretenders.
So why does it almost seems like it's a game, a tally points, like wins and losses. And as it seems, you wrote this book out really, really well with Raw Law. It almost seems like for the prosecutor, they're ruthless, like they're cutthroat, and they don't use their discretion as they should. Why is that? Why is it that it seems that the system doesn't use any sort of discretion when it comes to sentencing or even just trying a case as a whole?
What's the difference between a prosecutor and a cop mentally and emotionally? Same background, right? Just one is a little bit more educated. Most of these cops don't have college education, but most lawyers do. But they come from the same educational background. They come from the same communities, right? You get these young white boys who are trying to become politicians. Their dad was a lawyer, etc. And so they have the same or similar thought process, same or similar stereotype, the same or similar understanding of what it is to police the black community, the minority community, the poor white community. And so they bring all of that to the table. Their discretion, people always say, when you're a prosecutor, you sign up, you say you're there to seek justice, not convictions, to seek justice. That's your mandate. You tell me whether or not you believe they are there to seek justice. Have you seen one major case in your lifetime? Because I know you don't follow the small cases. You follow the major ones. All of us do that. We follow those major cases. Court TV was the best thing happened to us for a minute. We got a chance to see Johnny Cochran. All right? But we follow those. Do you think that they seek justice or do they seek convictions?
Definitely.
And what you'll find is that just like, I give you an example. Person is charged with similar circumstances as the officers in Minneapolis. You think if they were young black kids that did that to a man on the street, they wouldn't have been charged with first-degree murder?
Absolutely they would have.
Absolutely. You know why? Because premeditation doesn't take a plan like they're trying to convince you that it does. It doesn't take, it can consist of a plan. All it takes is a second, a minute, a half minute of deliberation. I'm going to see this guy die. I'm going to kill him. I don't have to map it out and sneak up on him around the corner and no, that's not premeditation. Premeditation is easier to prove than intent. But they don't get charged. The prosecutor has the discretion. In your case, he charges you first-degree murder and then negotiates at manslaughter because he knew the boy stepped on your sneakers, y'all rivals, etc. He called your mother a bad name, you got mad or something like that, and you pulled out your gun and you popped. So he'll bargain at manslaughter, he'll bargain at second degree, but he has that first degree over your head, which is life. You understand? That's their discretion. They're not interested. They want you to provide them as a defense counsel the facts that would allow them to come down. But think about this. All prosecutors live and die for the chance to try a homicide. Wow. Ooh, boy, they love that. Let me get in a homicide court.
That's insane.
I used to have prosecutors come up to me and say, man, I can't wait to get you in a homicide. And I used to say the same thing I say to you all. If you want somebody else here, invite them. But if you invite me, you're gonna get what you get. You know, so and that's really what it is. They have some discretion, but they don't use it because it's not politically expedient and it doesn't get the job done the way it should be done. We wish we could get fair prosecutors. I know a few. I know a lot, as a matter of fact. But the nature of the beast is convictions, not justice. And don't let anybody fool you into believing that it is justice, regardless of how fair the particular person is. I mean, I've literally had judges say, I'm not accepting that plea because they thought it was too low because the prosecutor was trying to be just. Think about that for a minute. How's that for a criminal justice system? How's that for you understanding that you're waging war?
I don't like that.
Yeah, like that's it's like you said, like from the get, it's against you from the get. From how they, we already know how they distribute the drugs into our communities, to how they sentence people for the drugs, to you getting in there, how they treat you. It's just like every step of the way, every step of that process that you have outlined is just against you. It's meant to break you.
Yeah, it is, and there's really no way around it. Again, just do the history. Go back to Reagan and work your way up. Go back to Lyndon Johnson, 1968, Safe Neighborhoods Act. That's where you get your SWAT teams. That's where you get your first group of money where the states are allowed to draw from federal funds to be able to get equipment, training, etc. Mm-hmm. And that was direct response to the riots in 68. And so now you got the president here saying, I'm going to have the military come on the streets. That's a direct correlation to 1968.
Law and order, yeah.
So just keep chasing them. Even your First Step Act, which all the black leaders touted, oh, this is a great moment. And even Donald Trump came out and said, oh, it's a great moment. Donald Trump signed it. If Donald Trump signed it for you, you know there's something on the back of it. So now look at what's going on. Yep. The only way prisoners get out now is to snitch on someone or to work for these corporations that have a connection to the prison industrial complex and work off their sentence like that. So you get free labor. Where do we hear free labor from?
Slavery.
Whoa, really?
Modern day.
You get free labor. That's how you work your stuff off. It's game. It's to say, and go back. The Defense Authorization Act that was signed into law by Obama. What did it do? It allowed the federal government to put troops on the street. Who used it? Who's attempted to use it? Trump. I mean, just keep going back. Let's keep going back. Every one of these laws connects to the next law. Mm-hmm. From the Patriot Act to the Omnibus Crime Bill to the Effective Death Penalty Act. They all connect in some way for the purposes of controlling the community that potentially can be out of control. And the reason is, my humble opinion is, the only community that needs to see the culture change is the black community. Yeah. And so therefore you have to control it. You have to control it. That's the only community here that needs to see the culture change. Everybody else can live with it. White America can live with it. My dad used to say, you must be really stupid if you're white and you're a cop. Because you have every opportunity to do everything else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was meant for you. Black America built this for white America. And that's why white America won't let it go. But it's also why white America won't let go of white American values that are antithetical to black existence or black rising above second-class citizenship. That's why they won't let it go.
So we call it modern day slavery because that's what it is, right? Free labor and everything. And a lot of the times we hear about mass incarceration, right? And that's what the politicians are talking about. Hey, we want to reduce that. But like you mentioned, those laws were made. They started building prisons and all that stuff for black people, for a place for them to go. Yeah. So they're talking about doing all that, but that's not written in the laws for that to be gone. So should we be happy that, as you mentioned earlier about Derek, the police officer that murdered George Floyd, that we got a degree murder? You know what I mean? Or should we understand that that's not real justice?
I see what you're doing. That's the setup question. You set me up. I see.
He set you up for the alley-oop.
But you know, you thought I didn't see that coming, right? Because you know how I feel. Everybody in the world knows how I feel about that indictment. Mm-hmm. No disrespect to the Muslim who's running it. But let me give you some background on this. Do you know who else was charged with second-degree murder? With second-degree murder with intent, second-degree unintentional murder, and third-degree murder.
Was this the Somali cop that killed the white lady?
The Somali cop. Yeah. He was charged with the same thing. So now, are we talking about that he did the same thing on the same level that these guys did? I mean, if you think about it, he's sitting in a car coming there on a potential act of violence, and someone, boom, bumps into the back of his car. He turns and somebody's at his window. Mm-hmm. He grabs his gun, pow! He shoots one shot and kills the woman. Negligent? Maybe. Unintentional? Definitely. He didn't intend to kill anybody. He didn't come there with the intention of killing this woman. He didn't even have time to deliberate. He reacted. But he was charged with the exact same thing as this cop. Right? At the head cop. Now, follow me on this. This is the Muslim who was charged with that. He was acquitted of the second-degree murder, which means he intended to kill the person. That's what second-degree murder in Minnesota means. It was an intentional act to kill. It was intent to kill. So he's acquitted of that. But he was convicted of the third degree, which is why he got to 12 years, right? Meaning that depraved heart, etc. murder, meaning that it was so reckless and so out of the ordinary that, you know, you have to have a depraved heart. Right? So he was convicted of that. Now, this particular aspect of it is you got 4 cops, right? And they're charged at the same level that this cop was charged, second degree. The only reason why I believe he was charged at this particular level is that's a capitulation. See, in my experience, it's that black people who come into leadership in America under that hierarchy want to please, just like the soldiers wanted to prove that they can be good Americans. And so that's what you have in that charge right now. Now I'm looking for the first degree charge. I expect that premeditation is in this particular case from what I saw. That there is time to deliberate. That there is time in this particular time where this particular person decided this guy should die. That's premeditation. So if you can prove intent for second degree and you think you can prove premeditation when a guy's on your neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and the people are screaming, he's dying. And he goes unconscious for at least 2 minutes.
Yep. No pulse.
And you render no aid of any kind, and you're trained to render aid. You can prove premeditation. So why not first degree? And again, you got a Muslim who's the first one charged and a Muslim now who's charged. You think that's, to me, in this business, there's no coincidences.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just don't believe that that's a coincidence. But I believe that the leadership who is charging right now is trying to appease and not to seek justice. Trying to be what he considers to be fair and not to seek justice. Justice to me demands that they at least charge first degree murder on premeditation. That's just me.
Yeah.
If you when they charge third degree, I said I could beat that. I could beat that. And I haven't seen 5 minutes of the video. I can beat that. Wow. Third degree depraved heart with the conduct that I saw out there. I could beat that. How are they going to establish that? To the satisfaction of a judge. Everybody's running around telling you, oh, a jury could do so and so and so and so. Remember what happened in Freddie Gray? Right? The autopsy report came out and said Freddie didn't die on the street. He didn't get his neck broken back on the street.
Yeah.
When the police arrested him. Although you could hear him screaming in the videos. Right? You could hear him screaming. And you could hear the original reports of the witnesses were that they bent Freddie like a pretzel. But when he's being dragged to the van, he has no legs. They're dragging him to the van. So then how is it that he broke his neck and lost the use of his legs and his back once he got in the van? The autopsy is a state medical examiner gave them their out. Just like the autopsy tried to do in this case, the first autopsy, by giving them an out by saying he died of some other causes other than asphyxiation. Am I right? Yeah. Same pattern. Just that the family was smart enough, the lawyers in this case got an independent autopsy. Right? And even though they say asphyxiation, they say these other things exist there as well. So I got wiggle room if I'm the defense attorney. I can work with that because I can say there's no intent to kill. How are we supposed to know he got coronavirus? How are we supposed to know he got drugs in the system? How are we supposed to know that? You know what I mean? I mean, you given that. And then everybody's talking about a jury. What if they don't take a jury trial? See, when you're sitting down to jury, you're emotional. That video will get emotional to you. It got emotional for Rodney King, right? People seeing him boom, 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 boom. But when the defense took it apart, one piece, frame by frame by frame, it looks like Rodney is so strong, he's recovering each time they hit him. Boom, he's trying to get up. Boom, he's trying to get up. So we gotta hit him because he won't stay down. He's just that strong. That's how they got the acquittals the first time.
Wow.
That's the same thing going on here. If you don't charge first degree, and you say he intended to kill him, that they intended to kill him, at least the first officer intended to kill him, you are going to have an uphill fight on the issue of intent. Did he intend to kill him? Or did he intend to subdue him? Or did he just not believe the people that were there next to him? He doesn't have to accept their word that he's dying. He just has to make sure that this guy is secured. And then the other two guys are on his back. Which part of it is the part that killed him? Was it because there's no damage to his throat? He suffocated because he lost conscious breath. He lost his breath because he couldn't get any air to his lung. There was a guy on his back. Is he the one who put the compression on him? Is he the one? I'm asking for a separate trial if I represent the first guy. It's the compression on the chest that caused this. How do I know that that's what is going on there with his chest? So you charge that premeditation, even if it's just strategic. But I believe you can prove it. I believe you can prove intent to kill by virtue of the amount of time that was spent there. And since you got 3 co-defendants, one of them will flip probably, because they're young. Young people always flip. They tell you they ain't gonna snitch, but they always do. But you got 3 co-defendants. All of them are charged with second-degree unintentional, which is really felony murder, meaning that if you can prove the intent to kill on one, all of them get treated as if they did the homicide themselves. But you also charge them with assault because you can prove felony murder on an assault, meaning that if they intended to assault a man and he died as a result of that, that's murder in the commission of a felony. Or someone dies in the commission of a felony is called felony murder. So you got a number of routes to get, but for them not to have charged premeditation yet, after all that we've seen, to me there's something amiss, and it's too consistent with what I've seen in the past in the Freddie Grays, in the numerous cases that I've tried on intent and on accomplice liability, for me to be able to say, because I think if they took a trial with a judge trial, which the cops did in Freddie Gray, right? Remember, the first cop took a jury trial, and the jury was 10-2 in favor of convicting him. The next ones went out and said, we ain't risking ourselves with no jury. Yep. They went straight to a judge. Judge threw it out after 10 minutes of deliberation. Wow. The next 2 threw it out because the judges see the world differently than the emotion of the human being. And so you really have to go an extra mile to prove intent, to prove depraved heart, to prove premeditation, and to the likeness of a judge. And so if everything you take off the table makes it harder for you to prove that which you have on the table. Taking premeditation off the table is going to make it harder if they choose a bench trial with the judge. Well, that's just my opinion.
Do you believe that they changed it because of the protest? Is that what was the power of the people finally heard? Were the voices heard that we protested? Is that why that happened? Is that why they're also opening up Breonna Taylor's case? Is protesting working? Are they starting to listen now?
Or do you see the same pattern?
Say again?
Or do you see this proceeding with the same pattern as the past?
No, I think that they are in fact doing exactly responding to the protest. But the problem is that the protesters don't understand how the response should have been. See, the protesters were calling for first degree, but I'm not certain people are educating them as to what premeditation really means. So the protesters were given an appeasement, a bone. Okay. With the second degree. And to me, it was an appeasement. It was just we got something. But that's the nature of black politics. If we can get something, we're not satisfied. We'll be satisfied.
Be satisfied with that, yeah.
Because you never got nothing. You know what I mean? You know, you're like the kid who on Christmas you never got a toy in your life, and so all of a sudden you got 5. When it's time to go home that night, what are you doing? When it's time to go to bed, you're taking all 5 in your arms and you going to bed because you don't know what's going to be there tomorrow. That's the way it is. That's the way black leadership has consistently responded in criminal justice system. If didn't Gail say it? Gail King, didn't she come out and tell you that? Remember the whole thing with her and Snoop, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
And she said,
yeah.
if you just let it die, if you just give them something, let it die. In another few days, it'll be all over. The intention will die down, but that's the way they think. That we give them something, it'll just die.
And that's
so.
Well, I was gonna say that was kind of my response with the DC mayor renaming the street Black Lives Matter, because I was like, that's so small. That's not even a win, you know. And what it felt like to me was you giving us something, just say, hey, hold this bone real quick, while we wait for y'all to simmer down. Let's let y'all get excited about having a street. I was like, yo, this street doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the fact that y'all still killing us dead in the street. This is just right. This doesn't change anything.
And there you go. And the tricky part about that is it's one of the most gentrified cities in the country right now. When I went to Howard, it was 70% black.
Yeah, no, it's the most gentrified city in America.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you say Black Lives Matter, tell that to people who used to live in Berry Farms out in Southeast. You know, tell them that. You know, tell the people who are in the county jail right now who can't get tests or masks for coronavirus. Tell them that. You know, to me it was a slap in the face to Trump. That's all it really was. But come on, that's his game. He plays that 5-year-old game. You know what I mean? He plays that 5-year-old political game. You know, you sleepy Joe Biden, nah. Grown man. You know, I said, man, I wish I'd have knew his mother. I was like, if I'd have showed up, go back maybe about 50 years and then met his mother, I'd have brought her a gift of a strap, beat his behind. That's all he needs. Just whip his butt one good time. Oh gosh, but that's the game they play. And so again, the community is left with the platitude of Black Lives Matter being able to be seen from space. Nice gesture if that's what you're into, symbolism and gestures. But what is black leadership without symbolism and gestures nowadays in America? You tell me. Is there some acting? I mean, think about it. When you finish with me, you Google this reform bill that they are putting on the table right now. See if any of it addresses anything that we talked about here today in a meaningful way. I mean, I saw. Think about that.
I think they put up a no-knock warrant. They talk about taking out the chokehold that you mentioned earlier that was deadly. They also talk about defunding the police, you know. So yeah, that was something, the reform bill that they put in there, so.
Yeah. Now think about America and find out if you think any of that will be around after the election.
No.
No. Of course not. This is America. The people have to change this. The leadership is not going to change this. I'm telling you, the leadership has a vested interest in the leadership. They don't have a vested interest in the people. They are the ones, if you're talking about whether or not the prosecutor's office in Minneapolis responded, they are the ones, the only reason why they're responding is because the people are in the streets every place you can name. And they don't want to seem like the Republicans as if they're not doing anything. So they took off some very important, what they think are important, no chokehold. Really?
Right.
Do you think that you really need to have to tell somebody, don't choke me? That you need to have a law? If that's the nature of what you have to have in the law, it speaks really, really sad about the nature of policing and the nature of the law. That you can't just like say, look, you can't choke people out. Wow. We need a law for that. We need legislation for that. We need a debate in Congress over that. Come on, you want to debate something in Congress over policing? You want to debate something in criminal justice? You ready? Debate whether or not cops have to have a license to carry. Debate whether or not they have to register their guns. just like everybody else. Debate whether or not they have to that this database that they're trying to get immediately upon them receiving an act of violence pulls them off the street. That they have to get psychological counseling. That debate whether or not if they injure someone with serious bodily injury or death, they lose the right to have the qualified immunity. They can be sued individually as well as an employee of the state. Debate that. Because the minute you take that off the table, that they can do whatever they want to on the street and be immune from it. The minute you take that off the table and say you can sue them directly, you won't see these killings anymore. You know why? Remember the old Chris Rock joke? Chris Rock said, look, I'll bust a cap in your behind, but the bullets cost $5,000. As soon as I get my check, you in trouble. Right?
You're right.
That's the thought process.
Yeah.
If you are injured, if you know that if you pull that trigger, your mortgage is on the line. Your child's education is on the line. You're potentially an indentured servant if you lose in a civil case to that person's family who you injured. They'll find ways around shooting people. They'll find ways around body slamming people up against their car, punching them in their face whenever they want to because they're mad at their wife, or they are mad at their husband, or because they drunk and came to the wrong door in the apartment and nobody tested their blood alcohol level, or because, oh yeah, I just want to shoot a black man today. I'm gonna make believe I'm gonna shoot him because he's reaching for his gun in his car with his girl. Think about the mentality of that. Philando Castile is reaching in his car to get in his glove compartment to get his license and registration for the cop who asked for it, right? And he's reaching and he's telling him it's a license to carry state, which means I can have it. You're threatened by the fact that I can have it, and it's in my car. His girl is in the car with, is the gun the threat or Philando the threat? You say, hold it, don't touch that. I'll come around and get it. You pop 7 bullets in him. What's to stop the girlfriend from grabbing the gun and shooting?
Yep, exactly.
The gun is the threat. Unless, of course, you're a black male. And unless, of course, I'm mad at something anyway, and I just need to get my thing off, and I'm going to shoot me a black man today.
Wow. I mean, you said...
Think about the mindset.
You said it best, though. Like, we asked in the beginning, what has to happen to see reformation or reconstruction of this system? And as you said it, there has to be something that makes you think twice as a police officer to assaulting anybody. All right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's what else you got to do.
Yeah.
You got to understand that you're a citizen. If you're going to be a citizen, I don't know whether you're a citizen or not, and I'm talking at black people in general. I don't know if you're a citizen or not. But if you're going to pretend that you're a citizen and they tell them you have the right to be a citizen, register to vote and get on juries. Make them pay at the jury room. Bring every experience that you have to that jury room. So when you see any hint of racism, you see any hint of bigotry, any hint of injustice, shut that jury down the same way you shutting down the streets out here.
I like that.
That's a place where you would hit them in their system, in the place that they are controlling power, because it's the enforcement arm. You can't beat a cop out in the street. You're not going to. I don't care how many gangsters you think you are. You're not going to just run out on the street with your guns and have a shootout with the cop because they beating up your sister. You're going to grab the cell phone. We all know that. But those of you who can be on juries, get on those juries and do what you have to do to make sure that justice is served.
Nah, I love that.
Hit them in the situation, in their circumstance where you have some control over. When you get in that jury room and you become that one black guy, Walter Hall's case, that one black guy, and he's the one on Oprah talking about, well, we really looked at the evidence, and I don't think it was a black thing, then why are you the only one talking? Why are you the one they put out front? Because you the token. This is the way they prove it wasn't a black thing. You send the black guy out. You say, I got a black friend. I got some black friends. See here, my black friends.
Wow.
You got to be that one black person who goes into that jury room and you squat. You squat like Khalid. You chilling in the corner and you listening to so-and-so and say, well, you know they all like that. You registering. Your racist registration is going on. Bing, 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 bing. You like Spider-Man. Well, that lawyer, look, I literally, this is no joke, I had a juror come to me one day out playing basketball. By the way, I'm still nice. I was playing basketball, right? And a juror comes to me and he says, aren't you Beshir? And I'm like, yeah. And he says to me, I was on your jury in that robbery case. And I was like, robbery? I tried a lot of robberies. Like, no, this is the facts. He gave me some of the facts. I said, okay, I remember. Oh, now I remember you, yeah. He said, you know what the problem was in that case? They wanted to convict the guy because they said you was too nice. They couldn't believe you were that good in court. They were upset with you. How, did you see the shoes that lawyer had on? Did you see the suit he had on? We spent more time talking about how well you dressed and how articulate you were in the courtroom and how arrogant you were to the judge, how you wouldn't back down from the judge. Then they talked about the facts of the case. The co-defendant got convicted. My client walked. But he was like, look, I'm sorry. This had nothing to do with the lawyer. Because the lawyer kicked the prosecutor's button here and he showed that there was reasonable doubt and he proved that his client was innocent, you have an obligation. And they were like arguing with him over me, not over the client. Wow. And so he said, I'll keep you all here the rest of the week if you vote this kid guilty. I'll keep you all here the rest of the week. Finally, they relented. Well, will you vote this other guy guilty? Yeah, I believe he's guilty. Okay, well, we'll compromise with you. We'll let him go. But they were talking about me in a jury room. Wow. And I had heard it before. I've heard it before. I heard it in Connecticut. I was in Connecticut in a racketeering case. When I left the court, it was the first time they ever had a hung jury in a racketeering case, 5 defendants. And the lawyers called me from Connecticut in Jersey and said, they calling you Johnny Jackets up here. I used to like to wear these long jackets, stylish and everything like that. You know, it's like almost a zoot suit. Now I'm only 5'6", can you imagine what that looks like? So, yeah, and they say, he tell me they calling you Johnny Jackets. They talk about me.
Wow.
There's no telling what these people, what's on their mind. So when you see that, when you go into a jury room, you wield your power. Black people don't think like that. No black kid will do that. Black kids run because they don't want to be stopped by cops, not because they did anything wrong. Yeah. Cops stop them all the time. They get tired of it. Resisting is when you throw a punch at a cop, not when you refuse to put your arm behind your back. Mm-hmm. Who wants to have their arm twisted, their shoulder twisted out of socket? When you start hitting them with those kind of facts and everything like that, you gain control, you gain power. And that's right now, frankly, other than the street corner and being ready to duke it out, that's really the only place you have power. Yeah. And the reason why you have power right now, and the reason why these protests are resonating right now, is because November is coming.
Mm-hmm. The elections.
A lot of these cats are up for re-election. Mm-hmm. So this striking while the iron is hot kind of thing, and I'm telling you, November 4th at 12:01, they're going to forget niggas ever existed. Mm. So I don't care who wins what.
So what can we do with all the energy? I mean, you talked about that everybody's being tired now, right? I know you said vote, which we hear all the time, but to get into jury, that's my first time ever hearing that, you know? So that's something good to know. I know you have to be a citizen, if I'm not mistaken, to serve in jury duty, but right. Sometimes we see it's like, man, I don't think that's a good place for us. I don't want to do it, but I'm actually encouraged now because that's a way for us to help.
Yeah, that's the way you got to fight back every way you can.
How do you actually become a juror?
Most jurisdictions allow you to sign. You get jury calls by virtue of your registration to vote. Okay. There are other ways. There are other things, but in most jurisdictions, it's your registration, your voter registration. Say again, babe. Huh? Oh, your driver's license also. Sorry, okay. That's my expert over here. All right. So, but your driver's license and your voter registration locks you into your so-called citizenship. So you gain all those rights. Don't throw that thing away. Mm. Don't throw that thing away. Go down there and man up. You ain't got, look, they're going to ask you all these questions to knock you off anyway. Oh. You know, they ask the stupidest questions and they all are race-centered. Believe it or not. Mm. Believe it or not. Look, think about this here. I ask you this here. What does your wife do for a living? You know what they're really asking? They want to know if you have a job and if she has a job. Yeah, that puts you in a different mental category, mm-hmm. Right? The minute you say she's home, she's a housewife, right? That puts you in a different category. The minute they ask you what part of town, where do you live? You say, if you say, think about this. If you say, Y'all familiar with DC, Maryland, right? You familiar with Maryland?
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume you say Crofton, and I say Capitol Heights. What does that say to you as a person who knows the two neighborhoods?
One is
I'm more likely to be conservative if I live in Crofton, right? I'm more likely to be white if I live in Crofton, or have white friends, which means I have white conversations. I don't have them ghetto conversations at the barbershop.
Yeah.
But if I'm in Capitol Heights, I'm at the Greasy Spoon, right? I'm getting my pizza from look, I'm telling you the truth. I ain't stereotyping, I'm telling you facts. Right?
Yeah.
I'm getting my hair cut at the Brother Steve's, right? And Steve is one of those cats who can't shut up. He always down in the white man. And so at least the discussion is there. I'm gonna have a different ethos. The kids are being stopped on the street. They're not getting the same education that they're getting in Crofton. All those things are gonna play in. And when on that one question, I now know I'm able to surmise all these things. So they ask you these questions so that you can say, I'm from Capitol Heights, da 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 da. Do you ever know anybody who's been convicted of a crime? That's a question they ask you on your jury.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Name me a black person that you don't know somebody who either been charged or convicted of a crime. Whenever I see a black person on a jury and they don't raise their hand for that question, I'll be like, really? What neighborhood did you? I'm serious. I'm thinking that. Really? I literally have to tell white lawyers, take that black brother off the jury.
But
You take a black man off a jury, you got black defendants. Bruh, I'm telling you, he don't see the world like a black man, like the black man you think he should see the world at. All black people don't think the same. He's seeing this kid as an embarrassment, as someone who's embarrassing him in front of his white friends so he can get in that jury room and be juror number 12, and they keep asking him, what do you think? Even though they already made up their mind. And he said, what do you think? Well, we think he's guilty. Yeah, I guess he might be guilty. He could be the most educated black man in the world, but when he get in that jury room, he's Ben Carson.
Lord have mercy.
Wow.
And that, take that man off.
One heck of a comparison.
Take that man off the jury, please.
There you go. We all know Clarence Thomas's and Ben Carson's. We know them.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at his shoes. Did this brother come in here with penny loafers, or did he come in here with some snakeskins? You know what I mean? And look, I'm telling you, all that has to go into this.
Yeah.
But nobody, you sitting there next to me at the table and you wondering, why am I kicking off the... I had a woman literally, I think I put it in the book, literally challenged me over me kicking off all black jurors from the particular county, because I knew where their mindset was. They were hating that it was me, this black man, defending a black man in front of all these white people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I loaded it up with, you ready? Don't think this is racist, because it's not. I did it based on research. I kicked off as many men as I could, especially all the black men, and loaded up with all white housewives. All white housewives. And I had my client shave his hair, come in bald, keep his face clean, and wear black every day. Black suit with a black tie, or a black suit, a dark suit with a dark tie. Why? In their minds, these housewives, they saw Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, I'm telling you a fact.
Wow.
They saw Michael Jordan, and they let him go.
You didn't tell him put the hoop earring in, did you?
He kept asking me, he said, Bash, you sure? I said, I'm telling you what they see. I've been out here. I came out here for this trial. I've been out here. I'm out here every day. I'm listening to their conversations at lunch. I'm going to their restaurants. I'm going to the swank restaurants. And I'm listening to the housewives who are walking their kids during the day, during lunch hour. I'm listening to looking at what they're reading in their newspaper. And I'm like, they all love Michael Jordan. The only black man they know is Michael Jordan. The more you look like Michael Jordan, the less likely you are to be offensive.
Yeah.
And he was not offensive. He came across as not offensive. He was polished, he was sharp, he was clean, he was acquitted.
Wow.
Except the white woman was fighting harder for him in that jury room than I was fighting for him outside the jury.
You want my man to win.
Wow.
But you won't know that if you don't know what the system is about. That's why the book. That's why raw law. So you can get inside of it. You can see what it takes. You can see why it wears on cats like me. You said you got hair. Really? Yeah, I know where I got hair at. It's over there in the closet somewhere. I can go put some hair on for you if you want. It's like, yeah. Ask Nuruddin if it doesn't wear on you.
Yeah.
He came to trial with me. They almost locked him up.
Goodness.
Yeah. It's war, bro. It's nothing to play with. And it's war because it has a historical context to everything. And if we take everything that we do, case by case, we don't link Breonna Taylor to Mr. Floyd. We don't mix them to Mr. Carson out in New Jersey. We don't mix them to the boy who was killed in Vallejo, California this week. Or the transgender man who was killed down in Florida this week by the police. We don't link those things. We don't see them all as part and parcel of the same continuum, the same system. How is it that the police are busting people in the head here in Minneapolis and nobody recognizing that they busting people in the head in Texas and in Florida? How could they have the same mentality? That peaceful protest is to be shut down violently, tear gas. How can they recognize that they don't have that the people are different? How is that? You treat them the same.
I mean, with this continuation, though, right? You mentioned that basically the whole premise of the book is to not get into the system. But with everything that you mentioned, is that even possible? I mean, driving while black, jogging while black, walking while black, all those things. Is it even possible to not get into the system?
No. That was a straight answer, right? Mm-hmm. It's not possible for you not to get into the criminal justice system, except if you're fortunate. Except if you got a better handle of the rules. So when everybody comes to me and they come to lecture to my students, and they say, can you tell them what their rights are in a motor vehicle stop? Mm-hmm. And I say, yeah, I can tell you, but now that I told you what your rights are, let me help you understand something. That's what the rights say on the book. When you out in the street, forget about all that foolishness.
You're serious?
Forget about the talk that your parents had to say, keep your hands here, this, that, and the third. If that helps you get home, then you do it. Mm-hmm. But your job at that point is to get home safely. Deal with it after the fact. Deal with the disrespect after the fact. That's what I'm going to tell them. If your hands being where you need to be, it's fine, then that's what you do. But the goal is to get home. The goal is to get home safely. To try to avoid the system at any cost. I'm telling you, bro, it is not a game. This is war. It is bloodletting every time. It's the kind of war where people literally go home, put a gun to their head, and pull a trigger. It's the kind of thing that attorneys fall apart in courtrooms. They just completely fall apart when they realize that they didn't introduce one piece of evidence that could have gotten their client off.
Well,
they just completely become alcoholics overnight. I've seen it all.
Could you give us right now
I've seen a lawyer come up to me and ask me to apologize to a drug kingpin because the guy was convicted. We were co-defendants. My guy walks, his guy gets convicted. And he asked me to apologize to the kingpin because they grew up in my neighborhood, in my same project. He asked me to apologize to him. Please explain to him that I did my best. I said, why are you apologizing to him if you did your best? You didn't sell no drugs. Mm-hmm. But it just wore on him so much. He just left the profession. It's war. And think about it. If you're a kid, you get caught up in this system. Your mentality changes overnight. What you believe is fair is all out the window. Your mom and dad can't tell you to come home and be honest, to be fair. You don't see it. You can't see it. Nothing happened to me that was fair. How are you inviting me into this? And nothing about it is fair. The mentality now, your mentality has changed. You either become a punk, a coward, you're afraid to go outside, you're afraid to confront police officers, you're afraid to be seen, afraid to be heard. Ramsey Orta, right? Ramsey Orta is the kid who filmed Alton Sterling, Eric Gardner's killing, the chokehold in Long Island. Ramsey Orta winds up where? The guys who killed him, and I said the guys, I didn't talk about the one, Pantaleo, not him and none of the other guys, none of the 7 who took him down go to prison. But the guy who filmed it went to prison.
Wow.
Think about what that says to the mentality of those people. See, because people think that Black leadership now is an appeasement leadership because they killed off all the militant leadership. So they're afraid to speak up and really challenge. Well, if that's the thought process on black leadership, what do you think it's like for the black kid on the street?
Yeah.
And I got to deal with that every day. I got to deal with witnesses who I know saw that he wasn't there, who are afraid to come forward because they might offend a cop. A judge might not take them seriously. Nobody's going to believe me anyway. And then when you come forward, remember Tamir Rice. Not Tamir Rice, Trayvon. Remember what happened with the girlfriend? The young girl who came forward?
What happened?
The girl he was on the phone with. It was a girl he was on the phone with. She came in and testified. She was ripped apart on the witness stand and in social media. Why? Not because of what she had to say, but because of the way she said it. She was street. So her street came out in court. She didn't get up there with the good King's English and yes, sir, no, ma'am. No, she came across the street. But the lawyer who was representing her, who was from the state, didn't know how to prep street. He didn't recognize street. He didn't know how to prep it. He didn't know how to prepare for it. So when her street came out in front of these good white jurors, they saw her as incredible, as not really caring, as cavalier. She ain't taking this that serious. Why would we take her serious? This is the war. Every day is something different. Every nuance of it consumes you. And you have to learn, you have to battle it. You have to fight it every day. Well, if you don't fight,
with that being said, Brother Bashir, you mentioned that the goal should be just to get home. You know what I mean? Just to get home safe and back to your family. Absolutely. I mean, what are some ways that we can do that, especially if we need to confront police? For example, you get stopped, you get pulled over. Should you automatically just turn off your car, get your license registration before the police officer comes, put on the dash, say, yes, sir, no, ma'am? Should we start recording? What are some things that we can do to, like you said, not put ourselves in a bad position and just to get home?
All of the above. Now, I'm going to tell you, again, this is street. I'm going to give you from the street. One, always have your hands where they can be seen. Okay. I always say, put them up there on the dashboard, etc. Turn the car off before they come to the car. Crack the window. All right, you don't have to roll it all the way down, but enough for you to be able to communicate with them and to be able to make eye contact. Okay. Right? Then speak respectfully. Your boys in the back, they got to keep their mouth shut. Your girl, she got to mind her business. Your boyfriend, if he in the passenger seat and you driving, tell him to keep his mouth shut. They ain't asking him for nothing. They asking you for the license and registration. And try to have them available immediately. All right? And then all you can do is hope, because you've seen the guy who rolled his window down just slightly and the officer just reached up and snatched the entire window out. You've seen the person who said, officer, why are you stopping me? And the officer took offense to it. Who the hell are you to ask me why am I stopping you? Get out the car. You must have something to hide. You've seen the guy who put his hands on where he can see it, and he's saying, my hands are right here where you can see it. Don't move. Why do you have your hands up there if you don't have anything to hide, if you're not trying to throw me off on something? Wow. You understand? The mentality is that you can't control what they're going to do. All you can control is what you got to do. So if you see that this cat is a guy pulled me and my father on coming down the New Jersey Turnpike, runs up on the car as a black state trooper, cold drunk. Dang. Cold drunk. My dad pulls the car over. He shines the light in the car. He hits the back seat. He's looking all in the back. What are you all doing out here? You know you're doing 79 and 65. Dad is like old school. My license registration is on the dashboard. Don't talk back to me. Then he shines the light and it hits me in the face. And he realized that 3 days earlier, I was cross-examining him in a trial. You can't make this stuff up. And he turns and he says, oh, shit. And he says, just slow down. Goes back in there. He's drunk. You could smell the wine on his breath. I said, Dad, he's drunk. And by the way, his name is so-and-so and so-and-so. You want me to report him? No, he's got enough problems. I said, cool. The goal is to get home You got to do what's necessary. You got to be, if loud gets you home, then loud. If putting your hands up where you can be seen gets you home, then put your hands up where you can be seen. If being quiet gets you home, do that. So there are a lot of things I can tell you, this is your right, this is that, but on the street, you got to be smart enough to be able to say, okay, this is going left. Let me see if I can turn it right. Officer, why are you stopping me? What are you asking for? Oh, okay, well, look, don't worry about it. Here's my license and here's my registration. I'm going. Give me my ticket, do what you got to do. Your car's stolen. You got any contraband in the car? You carrying anything? Why would you ask me that? Well, I can have a dog down here in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Can I search the car? Of course, just because of the response. He's looking for trouble. Yep. You got to be smart enough to understand that he's looking for trouble.
Can't antagonize.
And he got a gun.
Yep.
He got a gun in the backing of the state. Be smart. Try to get home. Okay, officer, look. Now, consent to search? Never consent to search. Mm-hmm. Never. He has no right to even ask you for consent to search. Never consent to a search. Because you never know. You might be from Baltimore. You know what happens when you consent to search in Baltimore. They put whatever they want to in the car. Yeah. That's been proven over and over and over.
Plenty.
You know? Mm-hmm. They just put stuff in the doggone car. They put stuff on the ground. They drop and say, oh, yeah, you dropped it. Yeah, right. But you got to be smart. You got to play what the hand that you dealt. But the goal is to get home. And you got to do it by any means. And I know it sounds like I'm telling you to be a punk. No, I'm telling you to save your life. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. That's all I say in the book. Try your best not to get in the system, because when you do, you don't know what the ramifications are down the road. Think about it. You get a ticket for a buck marijuana, right? It's a misdemeanor. You get your license suspended in New Jersey. I got a job. How am I get to work? Yep. I lost my job because I can't get to work. I work in New York. I can't get to work. The ramifications of something as silly as in my entry has cost me my job because some cop wanted to be had an arrest quota. Don't anybody let you believe that they don't have quotas, by the way. Tickets and arrests.
So they do have quotas. That's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Ferguson proved that they were just vamping the community, just giving people tickets so they could keep their budget. They don't have any industry. So their best industry was vamp the poor people, make them pay fines. And then when you don't pay the ticket, boom, the price goes up. And then boom, eventually you get a notice in the mail saying that your license is suspended and that there's a warrant out for your arrest. Now you got to post bail for the warrant. They just more money, more money, more money. They're killing you. This is what they were doing in Ferguson. But again, they had a consent decree. If they were doing that, which was illegal, why didn't somebody prosecute it? Mm-hmm. President Obama? Why aren't the people being prosecuted? Why aren't the people getting their money back? Think about that. In Florida, Miami-Dade, I think it was, police chief said, I need more arrests for burglaries. So they went out and arrested 50 black men on the street and charged them all with burglaries and convicted all of them. Do you know what that says? So that you all get a clear understanding, everybody listening to this. It means that there are 50 more crimes committed in, that were convictions in Miami-Dade, Florida, than there would have normally been. Now, when they eventually found out that these people were innocent, that this was a setup, do you think they took those 50 crimes off the books to say that black people were committing more crime? No, they didn't. Do you think they took the Chicago torture cases off the books to say that there weren't that many crimes committed in Chicago at that time? No, they didn't. There's a podcast out right now out of Chicago. I think it's called Behold or something like that. It's on The Intercept. If you get a chance to watch it, watch it. But they say something that's profound. For all of those people who are out there who are going to argue with me, and you're going to be some, they're going to be saying like, this guy's out of his mind. Everybody says that Chicago, the kids are killing each other left and right in Chicago. Am I right? Isn't that the reputation?
Yeah, you definitely hear
that. That black on black crime is crazy in Chicago. You don't want to go to Chicago. Black on black crime. Only 22% of the homicides in Chicago have been solved over the last 10 years. That's 2 out of 10. So how do you get to have black on black crime when only 2 out of 10 homicides? That's 20 out of 100. If you got 700 homicides, that means you only solved 45. And since black people only make up 22% of those homicides, that means they couldn't be all those black on black crimes.
Yeah.
But the statistic lets you believe that it's black people killing black people at random, all this crazy stuff, and we bite on it with our molars. Like this is, oh my God, Chicago is the most dangerous place in the world. It may be, but the statistics don't bear it out, and you're just getting gaslighted.
So when the police or these public officials are using these statistics, right, to just manipulate the numbers, what does that do for them? Like, is that giving them more funding? Is that like how does that help them to keep, for lack of a better term, keep the knee on our neck?
Remember the discussion we had about slaves being 3/5 of a human?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the discussion that we had that transferring over to prisons, being in rural neighborhoods, and you've been able to count the people there?
Mm-hmm.
It is all about dollars and cents. You don't get your prison industrial complex with Bill Clinton, except that you need a product. If you don't have a product, you don't need a prison.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
You don't have these empty beds for nothing. The prison industrial complex came under fire not because they were locking people up, but because they were pressuring the government and the courts to fill the beds.
To fill them up, to fill these prisons up.
We need you to fill these beds.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you fill the beds? This is what Stop Frisk is about.
Go find the people.
Broken Windows Police is about. Fill these beds. And who's the easiest person to fill a bed with? Young black man.
Black black
fill it up. Mm-hmm. Young black man and drugs. The best game in town.
Yeah.
Young black man and drugs. Because you can say anything about a drug offender. He possessed it. He had it in his pocket. Yeah. He had it in his wallet. I saw him throw it. You ready for this? I had a cop say that he chased this kid at midnight through the city of Plainfield. And as the kid was running, he tossed a bag in a dark alleyway. And the cops reported that he caught the bag in the air.
Oh my.
I'm telling you the truth. This is his first report. He went back and changed it. I was able to get the first report because I was working as the public defender in Plainfield. So when the kid gets indicted, I have this first report that nobody knows that I have. I take it to the prosecutor and I give it to him. I said, here's what he wrote first. Here's his signature. Now compare it to the second report. He didn't have to read the second report. He read that he caught it in the dark. He caught the bag in the air. He threw the case out right away.
No, that's not impossible.
You think I can give you the prosecutor's name. You can verify it. He'll laugh at the fact that I'm even remembering that story. He caught it in the air, in the dark, and still was able to track down the kid. I'll give you one more. You ready for another story? y'all haven't entirely too much fun about that. I got a kid who's a all-county wide receiver. He ran a 4.6 in high school. He's 2 years out of high school. The police raid a neighborhood, and boom, the kids scatter. Mm-hmm. As they running, boom, they run around the corner, and these kids know the project, so they duck wherever they go. But my client is walking down the street, and they see him, and they assume that he's coming from that group of kids that ran.
Yeah, from the spot.
So they found the stash, right, they assume. So they run up on him. The officer who's running to catch him is a guy named Jimmy Brown. Name ring any bells to you? If you're a football fan, you know Jimmy Brown was the greatest football player ever. But he was a running back.
Jim Brown, yeah, the Cleveland,
right?
Yep.
All right, Jim Brown. Right? So this officer is 5'8", 245 pounds, a fat roly-poly. In his report, he said he chased this kid for a block and tracked him down and tackled him and found additional narcotics on him. When I got a chance to cross-examine him, I'm looking at him when he walks in, his big roly-poly self. Nice brother, though. I mean, honestly, he's a nice brother. All right? He's walking into the court, and he says, he takes the witness stand, and he begins to testify consistent with his report that he chased this guy. Boom. Now, I've already established that the kid was known in the community and was a all-county football player, ran a 4.6 40. There's no way this guy catches him. So my question to him was, did you know that this kid was a high school athlete? I read some stuff about that. I heard somebody else tell me about that. Yeah, he runs a 4.6 40. Did you know that? No. Prosecutor's objecting. I don't care. I'm still going ahead with it. I said, you're telling this jury here today that you actually tracked this man down and tackled him. That's what I did. I said, brother, your name might be Jimmy Brown, but you ain't Jimmy Brown. now, and so that you know, since I know that's going to come up, I'm already thinking ahead. I put all old white dudes on my jury. Who would know number 32?
They know Jim Brown, exactly.
They would know that history. All right, they would know who. When I said to him, your name might be Jimmy Brown, but you ain't Jimmy Brown. All these white men on the jury just busted out laughing because they got the point. I mean, that's the nature of it. Now, it's funny now, but believe me, my kid was sweating bullets because he was facing a lot of jail time. The jury found him not guilty. Just on that chase. He could not have caught him. In a million years, he couldn't have caught this kid. If the kid ran, he couldn't have caught him. There's just no way. So, not this guy. He would never caught him.
So, you just mentioned, talking about media. People using media to understand, recognize, certain aspects that, Michael Jordan, Jimmy Brown, right? But as I said in the beginning of the interview, I preluded to the use of media as an influence, both good and bad. And in your book, you talk a little bit about how, as you say, it's not that we have. Hold on, a guy right here says it's not about where our values have gone. It's a matter of where our values come from, right? And so you start talking about media and how media is portraying us in a certain light. We're stereotyped, and we even believe the stereotypes ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
So, what role should media play going forward? Like, how should we look to influence media going forward? Because even this is a media outlet, right? Mm-hmm. How can we appeal with media outlets, people that are in film, people that are just in the news? How can we help the media look better for us? And in what way has media just, I guess, before you answer that, can you explain how media so far has hurt us in our culture?
Media has been used as a propaganda tool to create black inferiority and white supremacy. Go back to your first real exposition in media, and that's the Birth of a Nation, 1915 movie. Black man in blackface, white man in blackface plays this real big gorilla chasing this white woman. She's afraid she's gonna be raped. She throws herself off a bridge. Mm-hmm. They do a reconstruction of reconstruction. All these black people, all these white people in blackface dressed around eating fried chicken and dancing and partying and not doing anything legislation. And that brings about the rise of the white knights of the Ku Klux Klan, who are going to rescue people from these savages, these uncouths, these etc. Now that's an image that they have portrayed since the beginning, that black people were unworthy, that black people were inferior intellectually. Thomas Jefferson wrote that black people were inferior intellectually. So it goes far, even further back than that. Bacon's Rebellion, 1670s. All right, black people and white dentured servants come together to start a rebellion, and immediately after that, they create a concept called whiteness, meaning that regardless whether you were Anglo-Saxon, British, German, etc., you are all white now for the purpose of controlling these black people and these savage Indians, right? So then, therefore, they feed into those stereotypes from the very beginning. The media then comes along and is able to put those images out in broad scale. And black people have never been able to match those images. And when I say that black people even accept some of those images, Pygmy Markham was a blackface entertainer, right? What's the other brother's name? The most famous one. Oh gosh, I forget his name. But some of these cats were blackface entertainers. Some of them could only get roles being shuffling. They could only be stepping fetching. They could only be Big Bubble Eye. They could only be Steiny or Bucky. They couldn't get into the media with powerful, positive images of the black people. And so therefore, you see your big watermelon lips, etc. You see your Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is a black caricature. Yeah. You know what I mean? Look at the black face and the big white thing. That's that big white lips. And that's Mickey Mouse. He's a black caricature. And the media is constantly portraying these images. So they get to And here's how images to show you both sides of it. You're being told each and every day that in the media that you're inferior. And it plays itself out in Brown versus Board of Education. In Brown, psychologist, I think his name was Tolson, interviews black kids. And he asks them, gives them a white doll and a black doll, which one is pretty, which one is ugly.
I remember that experiment.
Which one is kind, which one is nice. You remember that experiment?
Mm-hmm.
And almost to a child, they pick the white doll as being pretty, the white doll as being whatever else, everything that comes along with that. It's the white child. And so they use that as saying that look at what the culture is doing to black minds. Jettison that now to the drug game and the athletic game. And what do they do each and every day with athletes and with drugs? Jay-Z is your 1 in a million shot.
Mm-hmm.
Jay-Z is your drug dealer. He did his thing and he was able to jettison from it and become, boom, a billionaire. So what do you think that says in the media about drug dealing to every young black kid who's waiting after school to see if the cafeteria people are going to throw some food out?
Yeah.
What do you think that says to him? The media. Do you all think that that Last Dance, Michael Jordan's experiment, that week-long documentary they did on the last championship of Michael Jordan and the Bulls, do you think that Nike didn't understand that they would release that sneaker right in the middle of a pandemic, right at the end or near the tail end of that Michael Jordan thing when they had everybody thinking about Michael Jordan? Did you see all the black kids who blew curfew to get down to Atlanta to the store, to Chicago to the store, to Newark to the store to get some Jordans? Because they know that propaganda, that media trains the mind. And they have trained black mind to believe exactly what they've trained white minds to believe. They train white minds to believe that they are superior, that they are better, that George Washington really is a hero, that Christopher Columbus really did discover America. But they train black minds to think the same thing. And if they believe that George Washington was a hero, then anything that George Washington did toward other people is acceptable. Exactly. But who did he do it to?
Us.
Black people. But then therefore, there must be something wrong with you because George wouldn't do anything wrong. Lincoln didn't do anything wrong. You understand?
Absolutely.
Thomas Jefferson wouldn't do anything wrong. He wouldn't rape Sally Hemings. She must have asked for it at 12 years old, 14 years old. Media is constantly projecting one group as superior, good, kind, and another group as inferior and in need of white help or acceptance. Now, I'm going to give you one. You're not ready for it, but I'm going to give you one.
Yes.
Most popular movie in the world over the last 5 years was what?
Black Panther.
Black Panther. Who was the villain?
That's a black guy.
Black
guy that was trying to liberate his people. Yeah.
Black guy from where?
From America.
From America. From the hood.
Mm-hmm.
Who was related to an African. If the two Africans come together, you have what? You have unity. You have power. You have the transfer of wealth, power, and energy between the two cultures, African Americans and Africans. But what happens? They kill off the African American because he becomes so entrenched in revenge and upset that he wasn't treated as a brother that he just loses it. But that ain't even the good part. Who do they rely on for help?
The white guy.
That's white guy, the CIA. Who's the biggest enemy to black people in the world other than the CIA and the FBI? I mean, right now, you got black leaders telling us that we need to get the FBI in on this. The FBI needs to investigate that. Don't they remember what the FBI did to black leadership?
Wow.
It brought it down.
The image. We buy the image and the movies and the entertainment and all that. And again, this is why they're so upset with black athletes who speak out. Because they're only supposed to entertain.
They're only supposed to dribble the ball.
Colin Kaepernick, you're supposed to entertain. Who the hell are you to think that you can speak up? Carmelo Anthony, he was being blackballed, in case you wanted to know. Who are you to go to Puerto Rico and start, all this trouble? We don't like Puerto Ricans. We're not sending them no money. We're not sending them stimulus. We're not doing anything for them. Who are you to use your money to help them? So the image out there is created by the media, sold to us, we accept it because they accept it as being real, and then we fall for it. So every drug dealer that's out there right now has one goal in mind, to come up.
Be Jay-Z.
Yep.
He wants to be who though? Jay-Z. And who's Jay-Z in entertainment? What's the most popular show the last 2 years? In the black community. Come on, work.
Oh, it has to be Love and Hip Hop.
Or Power.
Nah, Love and Hip Hop. Is it Power or Empire?
Power, yeah.
Power, Empire, yeah.
And both of them feature what?
Drug dealers.
Drug dealers trying to come up. Drug dealers who came up and got out of the game.
From a small town, got out, exactly.
The image is there. So every black kid on the block is hoping to come up in the world, they either coming up as an athlete or they coming up as a drug dealer. This is what they're thinking. Yeah. What you're doing here with this media, bruh, this is much more powerful than they ever thought would be. That you would be able to take this forum right here and turn it into something that could potentially lead black people to think as opposed to act or react. Yeah. That's the kind of power that you have in your hands right now.
If that's the case where media is portraying us and we're doing this to ourselves as well, then what's the trajectory of black people for the future? Can we start breaking some of these chains, or just because what we accepted and what we've been told and sold, whether it's media domestically and globally, how's our future looking?
I am pleasantly surprised by the energy of the black community. Pleasantly, I thought that this generation was going to be lost in anti-revolution mayhem. I thought they would continue to follow the old school leadership models, or they would succumb to the Black Lives Matter model that was designed to go to the left, as opposed to staying on course from Trayvon. Because they tried to divert to the left. You know what I mean? But for this rash of this confluence of corona, black people dying at a higher rate, AFRICOM slaughter, the 5 or 6 killings that happened all in one time, that almost like everybody's seeing, and then everybody's home and able to watch this guy die.
Yeah.
Literally watch the life drain out of him. If everybody's going to their jobs, you don't get this kind of fervor.
Yep. Nope.
You don't get this kind of furor. But everybody's home, everybody's stuck in front of the TV or on their computers, and they get a chance to see it all at the same time. And so all of a sudden, something has been sparked in it that has been missing, because they've been following the leadership that has bought into the American appeasement and to the stereotypes. And so now they're looking for ways around it. The problem is they don't have, I haven't seen yet that structure that says this is how we go around it. I don't want to hear no more Million Man marches. I don't want to hear people saying justice or else, and the question at the end of the day is, or else what? And so that you know, in blackface, I asked that exact same question. So Farrakhan, you don't take a free ride from me either. I don't want to see that anymore. I'm hoping that this next generation understands that the history is you are considered the enemy. Richard Nixon said it, Ronald Reagan said it, George Bush said it, Bill Clinton said it, Barack Obama said it, Donald Trump said it. You don't think Barack Obama said it, but he said to you, 2004 at the National Convention, there is no white America, there is no black America, there is no Japanese America, there's only the United States of America. Now, if you spent 400 years fighting to be recognized as Black America, that one man, one line in his ascension to power just negated everything that you stood for in the minds of white America. So every time you stand up and you say Black Lives Matter and other people say all lives matter, they're saying exactly what Obama said in 2004.
Wow.
That there is no Black America.
Wow. So why don't we all just leave?
Hope I hurt no feelings.
So why don't we all just leave, man? Wow.
Look, you know what though? You see, that's the biggest fear. That's the second biggest fear out there. See, because this culture can't function without a peon class, without a class, a black working class, a class to maneuver, a class to send to prison. All these things are invested in Wall Street. So they can't live without you. The problem is you think you can't live without them.
Yeah.
You understand? So then look, I'll give you an example. Let's assume the two of y'all, both of y'all make $100,000, right? and you got a brother who you know is a good brother and he's struggling, he make 20,000. And you just decide, I'm gonna employ you for another 20,000. He's surviving off 20. He could live off 40.
Mm-hmm.
But that would mean you literally have to give up 20 of your 100. Which means if you're living all off your 100, you have to live below your means. But if you're only living off 60 and you save and you think you invest in 40, right? You ain't doing nothing with that money, truth be told, that you can't help your brother out.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that collective thought process.
Mm-hmm.
That I can raise him up with whatever it is that I have to offer of me. Don't have to be money, my talent, my time, my whatever. And then therefore, when I raise him up, he becomes the person who raises up the next person. We don't think like that.
Yeah.
We think, as I just said, as you just read from the book, which depends not about the value system, it's where the values come from. That's an individualistic value system that is antithetical to the success of people of color. You have to think collectively. You have to move collectively. Watch your marches. See if you see an individual march or you see a collective march that moves a culture. Hip hop moves the culture, but it came out like barnstorms. I mean, everybody was rapping. Everybody was dropping beats. It wasn't just one person. If one person just came out, he was Spoonie G, everybody was looking at him like he out of his mind. But Brooklyn came out.
Mm-hmm.
The Bronx came out. You know what I mean? Long Island came out. And it exploded because it was a collective thing. And people of color, black people, have to learn and move collectively and think collectively in order for them to be able to move in the system and manage themselves in the system.
I pray that we do come together on this. I mean, I do believe that the younger generation has information at their fingertips. There's a lot of people that now are saying that they are allies of the black community. So I do believe that we can do better, you know, to kind of try to dismantle the system from the inside out and from the outside in. So,
well, tell me this here. Do you think you have some allies in the black community?
Listen, I don't think we have enemies, but I don't necessarily think we have the backing that would be necessary for us to make the exact change we want to make.
All right. Now that's because the people at the bottom can see the people at the top because they're always looking up. So I get to see what's at the bottom and at the top. The people at the top never see the people at the bottom because they never look down. You understand? So if you have allies who are, let's assume, liberal, what they call liberal or progressive whites, they don't see the world that you see. They just see the world that you're in. But they don't see the world that you see. When I'm explaining to you criminal justice, no matter how many books you read, you haven't heard anything like what I explained to you today about this. They don't see it. They don't see it. Now, they can be allies in the sense that they can support what you do. Like liberal whites supported the civil rights movement in the 60s, even though King had to call them out about their silence. But that's the problem. I mean, even if you go back as far as John Brown, people want to take John Brown, but I have a different take on John Brown. I have a different take on Quakers. They were hoping to see America be the America that it was supposed to be. They weren't thinking about revolution. They weren't thinking about overturning the government. Black Africans wanted to turn it over. They wanted to burn it down. Yeah. So you had two different mindsets. So you can have allies in a particular community, but those allies have to understand that you bring a different ethos to it. You bring a different ethos to it. You bring a different history, and they have to be willing to respect your history, see it for what it is, and say, yeah, maybe they are right on this, so maybe they earned the right to lead on this. And if they are willing to do that, then they are allies.
Yeah.
If they're not willing to do that, they're just people who want to see America look better as opposed to be better. Because it really is embarrassing around the world when this guy's got his knee on somebody's neck and he's white and you're white and you identify with your tribe and this is what my tribe is doing to people. It becomes embarrassment. So some of those people are out there just because they're embarrassed by it and they want to show that all of us ain't like that. Like black people do. Oh, he ain't one of us. We ain't like that.
Yeah.
Y'all know good and well, y'all run from Ben Carson every time he touched the mic. Every time he touched the mic. Y'all run from that cat. And Oprah, oh gosh, we running from Oprah now like it's some, oh God, like she got the coronavirus.
Yes, no, you're right. And you know, we were talking to people earlier, was saying that we need you to support. We don't need you to lead. We don't need you to go and be up in arms. We need you to support what we're trying to accomplish. And
Facts.
And that's why I said what I said. Like, it feels like, you know, there's support, but are you really an ally? Or are you really an ally, or are you just trying to, you know, appease your own ego and your own culture? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's really mixed feelings, because we had a lot of people ask us about the protests and things like that. And yeah, I think trying to put one type of emotion on it is difficult, because you feel multiple things about the people that are out there, you know, you even having to be out there. So I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah. There was nothing like, for me, hearing this guy call for his mama.
Yeah.
I couldn't hold back the tears. He was calling for his mama. His mama had been dead for 2 years. He was calling for his mama. I don't know any black men who saw that didn't feel that in their gut. And to me, that was a rallying cry in and of itself. Yeah. So it made me have to write faster, love harder, speak more often and more conscious. Just that mama, it just rang. It rang like the Adhan. It rang as loud as the Adhan to me. You know, it's like a call to something. And, you know, criminal justice, but remember, you got to remember, it's the enforcement arm of other systems. These other systems survive off the ability of them to be able to be enforced in the criminal justice system. I can deny you the loan, because if you get mad, I can have you locked up. I can deny you the apartment. I can deny you the ability to sit down in Yale's parking lot or in Starbucks. I can deny you the right to tell me that put a leash on my dog, because at the enforcement arm is designed to enforce against you. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. That's what it is. So we have to begin to think collectively and move collectively, so that we're not caught in these individual circumstances, or we're not subject to a leadership class that believes in another group's value system.
Absolutely.
Well, Brother Bashir, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. For everybody that's listening, look, there's so much information to take in. Make sure you guys check out Brother Bashir's books. Not only teach how to stay away from the system, but if you get in it, how you can definitely maneuver. Make sure you check out American Blackface, Raw Law, April Lessons, and Living and Dying, and I Buried Malcolm. So
April 4th, Lesson on Living and Dying. There it is, right there. It's a tribute to Malcolm X, Adam Clayton Powell, and Martin Luther King Jr. You know, and it's an expose on what it's like to lead. I always felt like before you criticize something, you should at least point out the positives. So I did April 4th first. Now I'm coming out with America and Blackface, because that's where the criticisms are.
Absolutely. And there's a lot in those books. I haven't read the others, but I already know I need to get them. And because just based off of what we read, if there's anything like Raw Law there, they are a necessity for Black Americans. And I don't just mean African Americans, I mean anybody that comes to this country and is subject to be profiled by the authority here. So yeah, it's absolutely a necessity if you're here. So thank you for all the work you've done.
You guys are too kind to me. I mean, you gave me an opportunity to say some things that were in my heart, and not feel like I'm alone in it. You know what I mean? I do a podcast called The Raw Law Project, but it's always me sitting there pontificating. And so to be able to say I'm having a dialogue with somebody, believe me, bro, it's enlightening, and it's refreshing, and it's helpful. It means that the fact that you found it interesting, the book interesting, worth reading, is flattering, but it also says keep writing, because there are people out there willing to listen.
It's
alhamdulillah, man. God bless.
Thank you, brother Bashir.
Alhamdulillah. I'm out. I gotta go eat dinner.
That's okay. How can people get a hold of you if they have some questions? How can they reach out? How can they best contact you?
Excellent. Yeah, please. They can contact me by email at mbash7@hotmail.com. Especially if they want to order any of the books, they can just send me an email there, and then I'll give them pricing there. We tore down a website. We're in the process of putting it back up. Hopefully it'll be up within the next 2 weeks, where they can go directly online and purchase. If they want to get Raw Law in and of itself, they can go strictly through Barnes and Nobles and Simon & Schuster, because this particular aspect was previously done by me, self-published, but it got hot on the streets, and Cash Money Content, you know, Baby and all them cats.
Yep.
Yeah, from the Louisiana boys, Louisiana country boys, the gangsters, they picked it up. That's what that little design
Cash Money
is. Cash Money Content. So they picked it up, put some money behind it, and had it republished by Simon & Schuster. So you can go to Simon & Schuster, you go to Barnes & Noble, you can go to your major bookstores and get it from there.
Hey,
great.
Make sure y'all go ahead.
Again, contact me, mbash7@hotmail.com, or check me out on Facebook at Raw.
Got you. Well, thank you, and Mo, I think it's time for us to wrap this up.
People want to reach out to us.
Yes, sir. If people want to reach out to us, how can they reach us, Muhammad?
Yeah, so people can shoot us a DM, Instagram, Twitter, Young and Muslim. That's YOUNG, the letter N, Muslim. And Jabril, if they want to listen to us, how can they do that?
If you want to listen, you can listen to us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, basically anywhere and everywhere that you can download a podcast or listen through streaming, you will find us. As well as YouTube. If you want to find us on YouTube, you can find us at the Young and Muslim Podcast, spelled all the way out. Leave us a review if you could. And when you go to our YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe.
Yes, please do.
Yes.
So I think it's time to wrap this thing up, man.
Let's get it. So for the last 2 hours and 43 minutes, you have been listening to the Young and Muslim Podcast. I'm Jabril Salam.
And Muhammad Hassan.
And we leave with the greens of peace.
As-Salaam
Alaikum.
Peace out.
Peace.